Yud Aleph and Beis.
Omamar, no?
Omamar, yeah. Omamar. Yeah, we're not going to wait a little longer. Okay, Yud Aleph and Beis. Let's get going. Another thing. Yud Aleph and Beis the Bottom. We're not doing the Daf Yomi. We're doing last week's Chazarah. So we're starting at Aleph and Beis till Yud Tessim and Aleph, really the top line. Till Hada Peri, yeah. Okay, we're going to get started. Okay, we're going to get started from Daf Yud Aleph and Beis. We're going to aim to get till Daf Yud Tessim and Aleph, the top line. We're going to try to break it down into three separate halakim from Yud Aleph and Beis till Yud Daled and Beis, where it starts getting into the much more gata of Seder Nevi'im. It goes through Eiv, Kemat till the end of the parak, and then we're going to start Layachvar and go through the first blot and a half. So let's jump right into it. Omamar, Hayasasum Ubikesh Lepoischoi, Ein Bnei Mavoi Makvin Olav. We learned last week that if a person had a Pesach and he closed it off, even though it was closed off, the halacha is the Bnei Mavoi of Mavoi B cannot prevent him from reopening the Pesach. And the reason is, we're going to see in a moment, is it's because he did not take away the whole entire frame. And Rashi says he's megala das, that he's not misalik himself from it. Avaparas is petzimov. Once he removes the frame, bnei mavi makvin olav, because like that he was ready megala das. He's not interested in having a Pesach anymore. Amalei abayla rava tani dem sayelach. I'll bring you.
We're listening to this the whole time.
No, it's fine. Tani dem sayelach. You can leave it, whatever you want. Amalei abayla rava tani dem sayelach. I'm going to bring you a raisa that proves out your point of the Nakuda of removing the frame. That by Bayis, when a person has a Pesach in his Chatzar and he closed it off, Yesh Loi Da'od Amos, he still remains the schus of Da'od Amos. However, Paras Espetzimov, once you remove the frame, the door frame, Ein Loi Da'od Amos, you lost that entire schus. And we find this also by a kever. Kever Shepaschoi, Sasum, you close it up, Ein Metama Kol Svivav, it's not Metama all around the kever. The halacha is that by kever we made a takana, that all Da'od Amos surrounding the kever, a person becomes tummy in order that Chas v'sholom, if he ends up stepping on the kever itself, he will become tummy deraisa. So therefore we made a Da'od Amos. However, Paras Espetzimov v'sasmai, once you close it up, including removing the frame, on Yud Beizam and Aleph, top of the Amud. Yud Beizam and Aleph, top of the Amud. We're finishing up the parentheses. Metame Kol Seviva. We see this concept also by Bayis Sasum, instead of Kever, Bayis Sasum, Ein Metamikol Svivav. Someone has a mace in his house. The halacha is it's not Metamikol Svivav like a regular Kever, even though the door is closed. However, Paras et Spetzima, once you remove the entire door frame, then Metamikol Svivav like a halacha of a regular Kever. So here's the Rai, the concept that once you remove a door frame, so to by the Bnei Mavoi, your Magale Das, that you're no longer interested in this Deles or this Derech. Amar Rabba Barachana, Amar Rabbi Yechina, Rabbi Barachana says in the name of Rabbi Yechina, Muvayis Amu Filashos Le'ira Cheres. You have a Mavoi, there's two Mavois, one Mavoi has a derech that goes through another Mavoi in order to get into the city. The halacha is, Vikshuv Ne'ir L'Saisma, the first Mavoi, that the place that the second Mavoi was using to get into the city, they wanted to do, what do they want to do? Vikshuv Ne'ir L'Saisma, they want to close it off. The halacha is, Bnei Oisa'ir Ma'akvin Alein. Mavoi B that was using this derech could be ma'akiv them and they could prevent them from using it. Ve'loi mivoy zokt Rabba Barachana, not even in a scenario koleka daka achrina de ma'akvi. Not even a case where there is no other way except to use that path of Mavoi. They could still prevent them from not blocking it off. Elafilu ki'ika daka achrina, even in a scenario where they're only using it for a shortcut, nami ma'akvi, they could also prevent Mavoi Aleph from closing up the derech. Why is this halacha true? Mishum Dav Yehuda Marav, Damar Yehuda Marav. Meitzar shechzika by Rabim also lekalkule. Once a person, even a rishus yachid, even a private place, once the Rabim was machzik in it, you're not allowed to destroy it, now I'll take it away from them. K'dar Gidol, Amar Gidol, Rabim sheber derech la'atzma. If a Rabim uses this asada as a shortcut to go to Shul, it's very common in these days. Ma sheberu beru, it's already theirs unless you have to put up signs, macha, etc. What people do to prevent it from happening like this halacha of a chazaka of a Rabim.
So what's the reason that they're trying to prevent it, I understand.
Correct.
So but you're saying that they have the right to do it?
They got the right of way. Once the Rabim gets the right of way, you can't remove that right of way. They have a chazaka. Amar Avana Namar Shmuel Mivayis Amafuloshin Lushis Arabim Uvikshu Bnei Muvayis Lahami Lehan Dolsois. The halacha is, we all learned, we saw this when we learned the daf, all these diagrams, that the Mavoi is a large, there's a bunch of multifamilies, and then there's a Mavoi that's going through that, what we call like a little dead-end multifamily. It's common in Monsey. And then there's a Shus Arabim. They want to do what they want to do is they want to put a door to prevent people from getting into the Mavoi. So the halacha is, Bnei Rishus Arabim Makvin Aleim, not to put on a door. That where we're talking about to put the door, not at the, by the first Dalat Amis, it's a problem, but Dalat Amis in is not a problem. Why? Kerav Zera, Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Zema, Rav Nachman, Dalat Amis is smuchus Rishus Arabim, Kerishus Arabim Damyan. We find that by Saita. The halacha is Rishus Yachid Safik Tameh. So too by the Mavoi, we want to say that the first Dalat Amis, which is Samach to Rishus Arabim, would have a din of Savik Tameh. It'll be like a din of Rishus Arabim, and therefore they can prevent them from putting the door. Velohi, Hasam Len Yatoma, there the reason is because of a Saita, we learned that over there, that Dafka needs to be, has a din. The first Dalat Amis is a place that a person would, it's pashut to understand that a person wouldn't be miyached and do dvar masurim in the first Dalat Amis. Aval Hacha, here the Nakuda is, in the Dachni Bnei Rishus Arabim, Va'ili Tuv over here, we can understand that the Rishus Arabim, there's plenty of times that they get all the way into the Mavoi, and therefore they created themselves a chazaka, and you cannot put a door whatsoever in that Mavoi. We're going to continue. We said in the Mishnah, we saw machlokes in the Mishnah Yud Aleph and Aleph that we saw Tanakama held you need to have 9 kavin. We said it's around 3,750 amas, and Rabbi Yehuda says half of that is good enough. So the Gemara explains V'loi pligi. Rabbi Yehuda and Tanakama are not really arguing. It's more of a balbatisha point of what? Marki Asrei. Where Rabbi Yehuda lived, the ground gave a better yield, so even less than 3,700 amos, it was worth it. It was profitable to plant in there. Masha'enke Tanakama held that in his area, it wasn't that he held, it was a Metzias. In his place, it took at least a good 3,700 amos in order to become profitable. But Bavel, what is the halacha in Bavel? In Bavel, it's much more. The land is much worse, and it would take even much more than 3,750 amos. So what is the halacha over there? Amar Av Yosef, Bei Radu Yaima. It has to be profitable enough that you could give an entire day's work to an employee. Because in those days, there was no such thing as hiring an employee for hours. They paid him for the day, whatever number would be, and if he's not going to do a full day's of work, you end up losing money. So Frek Gemara, what is a day's work of plowing? My Bei Radu Yaima. Now, in those days, they plowed it twice. One right after the Ksira. During the Ksira, right after the land was very hard. We're smack in the middle of the Amid, Julie. The plowing was very difficult ground, and it took many more hours than after when they, at the time when they did the Zriya, the land was much softer, and they were able to do it in a much quicker time. So, Frek Gemara, what is the scenario when we're saying it takes a day's of work? We're not being clear. If you tell me we're doing it in the case where the second time around by the Charisha, which takes much quicker, in a Chanami, it took much more than a day's worth, because the ground was harder, but it did not take 2 complete days. So you're going to tell me Yom Zara, and you're going to tell me Yom Karva, if you're going to tell me it was in a day, in a Sada where it takes a full day of work the first time around, where the land is very difficult, Yom Zara loyhave. Then back, the second time when you do the Zriya, which is much less hours, is not going to be a full day's of work, and he's losing money. We're talking about in a Chanami, in a place where it was the first time around. And you're going to tell me we had a question, it doesn't take 2 days of work. By the Yom the Zara is going to take 1 day, Yom the Karva is going to take not 2 days. The Karev Etani, they did it twice. By the Charisha, they planted, by the Ksira, 1 full day's of work. And Yom the Zriya, they did it twice. So because they did it twice, it ended up being a full day's of work. Iba Sema, the other way you can answer is Yom Zara. We're talking about a Yom the second time around. We said if the first time around takes a full day's of work, then the second time around is not going to take a full day. For the Gemara, Bahaduri, we're talking about a rocky place, mountains, etc., which does take a full day even the second time around. Frek the Gemara, what is the halacha by a davla? Davla is talking about a bar that you filled up with water that you used to irrigate the field. How much water do we need? Amar of Nachman, Bei, the Oli Yom has to be profitable enough that we could talk about. We're splitting that each person could hire an employee and it'll take him a full day's worth of work to irrigate the Sada. How much does it need to be a pardesa vineyard? Amar Avur the Shmuel Bas Shloisha Kavin. It needs to be 3 kavin in order, that's the bare minimum. Without explaining the amount, he says, I'm going to sell you a keren. The halacha is, sumchas oimer lo yifchos me gimel kavin. You need at least to have gimel kavin, so it's a raya that the bare minimum is gimel kavin. Omer Rav Yosef gets up and he says, Ein elo divrei nevius. To come onto such a concept, to say such a measurement of gimel kavin, is coming from nevius. Bevavel mayu. Again, what is the halacha bevavel, where the land was much more difficult? Amar Rav Kasna, but plas itza bnei tresa gufni. You need to have 3 rows, each one had 12, so 36 trees was enough to split up the karka. Kihechi derafik gaver b'yayim. That was enough that it'll take to take a full day's of work. Amar Rav Dimi dimin chayfa miyayim. Now we're going to go a little into Agata. Miyayim shachar beis hamikdash. Nitla nevuim and neviim and nisna lechachamim was taken away from the neviim, and we gave it to the chachamim. Frak the Gemara atu chacham lav navi. Until today, you tell me till it was transferred, the chachamim were not neviim. So for the Gemara, hachikama afa pisha nitla min neviim. Even though we took it away from the neviim, min chachamim loy nitla. Ama meimar v'chacham adif min navi. A chacham is better than a navi. How do we know this? Shenamar says, the navi has the leiv levav chachma. Mi nitla b'mi. Who's going to each other? Havayim katan, which is the navi, has the katan, has the leiv of a chacham, nitla begada, which is the chacham. Like that, you see chacham adif min navi. Ama abaya teida da magavaraba milsa. Umisamer mishmei the gavaraba achrina kavase. He says in the name of somebody, a chashav a gadol, and later on they say it in someone else's name also. Amar Rava my kusha. What's the kunz that they both said the same thing? The dilma tarvayu bnei chad mazal aninu. They both have the same mazel, and that's why they're both mechavan to the same Torah. He says, Umisamra, we're flipping out to Yud Beis Amid Beis. Umisamra Mishmei de Rakiva bar Yosef Kavase. And Rashi says, he's masber, you can't say Yechad Mazala. Because Rakiva Chacham Mimener Harbe. Omer Avashi, my kusha. What's the kasha? Dilma Laha Milsa bar Mazali, Enechanami. Klape, everything is not considered a full on his madrega, but Klape one zach, he was able to be mechaven. El Omer Avashi, Teida. The Amar Gavarabba Milsa, he's going to say, Alocha Misamra, Alocha L'Moshe Misinai Kavase. When he said Alocha L'Moshe Misinai, you can't say that you had the exact same Nakuda of Bar Mazel. Frektig Marva Dilma Kasuma Baruva, just like a blind man finds the skylight, who then he can find the window. It's pure sheer luck. Frektig Marva, Lav Tam Yoiv. Avadi is given a tam. So even you can't tell me that he's coming from pure luck. He's able to give a tam to what he's saying. Amar Rav Yochanan Miyoim Shachar Beis Hamikdash. Nitla nevuim and nevim was taken away from the neviim, and nitna tehu l'shaitim l'tinaikis, and we're about to say 2 stories. One regarding a shaitim, one regarding a tinaikis. L'shaitim ma'i. How do we know that it was about the story with the shaitim? Ki had the mar b'avashi davakoi beristka the mechuzah. He was in the shuk of the place of mechuzah. Shamalu shaiti. He heard a shaiti saying, "The kama reish besifta demalech b'masa machsa tivyumi chasim." The person who's going to be the next Rosh Yeshiva, the next Rav of the town of Masa, signs his name Tivyumi. Amar man chasiv Tivyumi Rabbanan. Who are the people in Rabbanan that signed the name Tivyumi? I know, I am. Shmami no letidi kaimeli shaita. Now is my time. What did he do? Kamasa. He went running towards that village. Ad Asa. Meanwhile, by the time he got there, what happened was Imnu Rabbanan Leislav Achim Difter Bereisha. The Rabbanan, the Vad over there, they wanted the point of Acha as the Rosh Yeshiva. Even the Sham of the Asa, once they heard that he's coming, they sent a pair of Rabbanon to give his approval. To ask him his advice and to give his recommendation. Ikve, he held on to them. They sent another pair. Ikve gabe adimolabe asara. He waited until there was a full minyan. And then, Kivin the Malabe Asara, once there was a full minyan, Pasachu Vitani, he started talking with Darash, the Fishain Paischim Bekala Pachas Masar. The Gemara says, why did he have to wait till those 10 people? What happened was that once there was 10, he started opening up and starting to say Torah. They were so impressed, they quickly went back to the city and they told him, forget about it, we have my Rav Ashi right here. He's much more greater in Torah. And the reason why he waited to 10 is because Ein Paischim Bekala Pachas Masar. Kari Rav Achan Nafshe, when he realized he's losing that position, he said, Kol Hamirin Loi Loi B'Meheir Mativin Loi. V'chol Hamitivin Loi B'Meheir Mativin Loi. Now Elamai is not his proper time. He lost the schos of getting appointed as the Rav of the city, and it's not going to quickly change around. That was the Maisa. We clearly see that Shaitim had Nevuah. Now we're going to go into the second incident with Tinoikis. Tinoikis Mahi. Kiyad Abbas, Rav Chizda was sitting on a Yosef Bekanfi Davor. She was sitting on the lap when she was young. Haviyasu kamei Rava v'Ram Bachama. Rava and Rabbi Chama were sitting right in front of them. Amar Lashes, he asked his daughter, Rav Chizda asked his daughter, Mami Nayu Bais, who do you want as a chassan? More of a lashon, as a joking matter. Amar Leish, the Tinaika said, Tavayu, I want both of them. Amar Rava quickly said, I know Basra, make sure I'm second. V'kach Hava, and they ended up marrying both of them, and Ram Bachama died, and then Rava ended up being her second husband. Amar Avdin min Chayva Koidim Shiyaichel Adam Yishte, before a person eats. He's very indecisive. He has many hearts going on. Once he eats, he's very clear. He's very miyushish. An empty person, he has many hearts. And we see the concept navav. Navav means hollow, lashon empty. But it says lavav nevuv luchais, where it talks about empty luchos and mitagaminon chale luchan, hollow boards. So we see very clearly it's hollow. Someone who's ruggled to drink wine, afilu liboy atum kibesula, even if his heart is closed up like a besula, yain mefachabe, drinking wine and opens it up. Shenema vetirayish, good wine, yinoive besulais is going to open up. Again, yinoive, we're learning the lashon of opening up besulais. Now we're going to handle a case as follows, where a person, they're splitting up the karka. There's a bunch of sadis, they want to split it up. The Bechar who's getting two chalakim says, don't give me on the tzad A, the right side, and then give everyone else in the middle, and give me on the left, the other portion. What's going to happen is, it's going to be much more complicated for me to have one sada on the right, one sada on the left. I'd rather to have one large sada. Amar Rav Huna Bereide of Yeshua. Pshita, it's pashut. Chelik bechar, the chelik pashut. When he's dividing up the bechayr and he's going to get two sadas, we're going to give him yavina leachad mitzvah. We're going to put it on one mitzvah like that. That makes much more sense. He's going to get one large sada. Yavam mai. The question is regarding a yavam. Yavam, who's going to get his yairish of bechar, he doesn't get a bidyuk like bechar that gets two chalakim. The Gemara is clearing, maybe he should have the exact same din of a bechar, and therefore he's going to get one large sada. Amabai, he eats the exact same thing as a bechar. Just like the bechar is going to get two right next to each other, then this yavam is also going to get right next to each other. My timer, what's pshat, bechar, kairach mona. That's shita sabaya. We're on the bottom of Yud Beis, Amud Beis towards the bottom. Rav Amar Krot says v'haya bechar, that he's like the bechar, the avyasik bechar. However, he's going to get like a bechar tu chalakim. Ve'ein chalukasai ke bechar. He's not going to get like the bechar that gets two sadas on the same boundary. The Gemara continues, Yehuda Zavan Ira Mitzvah the Beinashe, there was a person that bought a sada right near his family's field, touching it. So now when the father died, when they split it, Kikapalgu Amalei, Pligali Amitzroi, give me the sada that's the closest to my field. Again, the same concept like that, it's much more profitable, it makes much more sense, it's much easier. And therefore we would give it to him because they have nothing to lose. Maskif Loi Rav Yosef has a tiny, he says, the brother to say, the Bay Bar Mirion, which means to say is we're talking about Sada Beis Abal, which is relying on rainwater. And maybe this field is going to get less rainwater, and maybe the field that you want to take is going to be a better field, better mazel, just like Bay Bar Mirion, which we saw in the Gemara last week, who was very wealthy, and his Sadas were much better. The Allah is Karav Yosef, that we don't say Kovin Amid Sadayim in that scenario. Trey Arisa, Trey Nigri. Frek the Gemara, we have two lands, and there's two water canals that are giving the field water, so you're not relying on the rainwater. Rava clearly said, no, Zimnin, the high midville, the high light midville. It's very possible that what will happen is one of the canals will dry up, and therefore I want to split my risk, and I rather splitting the sod into much more pieces like that. I always have a backup of a canal that's going to give the water. The Hilchos of the Ma'aser Karav Yosef. Tarti achad nigra. What is the halach when you're relying on one source of water? Rav Yosef kegoin zeh. Now it's Rav Yosef talking. He says kegoin zeh kaifin amida sedaim. Maskif la abaya frekta abaya matzi amar. Why can't with the other brother, the other person taina beina dafish arisai? I want it to be that you have in one field on the right, me in the middle, and you should schlep to the left. And what I gain is that now you need to supply yourself more arisim, and it's beneficial for me now I have a much more shmira. The Hilchos of Yosef. Why is Allah of Yosef kegoin zeh kovin amida sedaim? For the Gemara afushi la Monsey. The tain of Arisim has nothing to do with the Sadeh. You're doing it for your own benefit. What is the halacha? Chad Gisa Nagra, V'chad Gisa Nahara. If you look at the diagram on the page, and all Gemara's bring this down, that on the Mizrach side there's a Nahar, and on the Tzafin side there's a Nagra. So the only way to split it, Zok Demara, is Pal Gilah B'Karan Azal, I call it a pizza pie. So the only way to get it is because what's going to happen is that any other way you split it, Zok Gemara, one of the brothers, Reuven or Shimon, is going to get more than Nahar, or more of the Nagra, either the canal or the river. It's impossible to split it in a regular square that one of the people are going to get a bigger portion, the one that they're going to get the exact same portion. We said in the Mishnah, we explained conference rooms, etc. The halach is in order to split it, you have to be Achia Bahan Kedei Lazeh V'Kedei Lazeh. Zok the Gemara. What happens? Ein Bahan Kedei Lazeh V'Kedei Lazeh. There's not enough to split it. Mahu. What is the halacha? Rav Yehuda Amar is Dina de Gudei Agud. Dina de Gudei Agud means a person can approach his partner and says there's not enough Teichen, there's not enough to split the pie, so let's make a deal. Either you set the price or I'll set the price and we'll move on. I'll pay you for your portion. Do we say such a concept or not? If Yehuda says yes, it's Dina de Gudei Agud. In a case where let's say a Sada does not have 8 amas. So the person says, I got it, it's 7 amas. The halach is we don't split it, but let's set up a price like that, one of us could walk away. For both of us to have it, it doesn't make too much sense. Rav Nachman Amar, last Dina de Gudei Agud, there's no such halacha of Gudei Agud, and if I want, I could be tough, and I can stay with the small property. Amalei Rav Rav Nachman, Frek Rav Rav Nachman, Li Didach the Amras, you tell me less Dina de Gudei Agud. What is the halacha by Bechar u Pashat, where he gets double schusim, Sheniach lem avin eved u behemet tmeya, and the Gemara says Dafka tmeya, Rashi's masber, you can't split it up, because if it's a tire, you could just shecht it and split the pot. But we're talking about a tameya, and the only way to use is by utilizing this behema. So the bechar is getting much more benefits because he gets to use it 2 days in a row, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, for example, to travel, pay for gas and tolls for 1 day of using it. So Kate said, Eisen. Rav Nachman sticks to his guns. He said, I got it that it's not pleasant that you can only get 1 day and I get 2 days. But that's too bad. There's no din to go to Agud. Meisvei, frektig Mara. Mi shechetzi eved v'chetzi ben chayrin. A person is a half an eved, half ben chayrin. The halach is as follows. Oived is rabba yoymechot. What happened was there was 2 shutvim that owned an eved, and one of the shutvim redeemed it, he released him. So now he's a half an eved. So the halach is oived is rabba yoymechot. He has to work for one of his eved that didn't release him. Ves atzma yoymechot. Now he's released for the other day. Divrei Beis Hill. Beisham oimer no. Tikantem is rabbi. You helped himself for his master, he doesn't care. It's atzmai loiti kantam. However, for himself, he's losing. Why? Lisa shivcha eini yachal. He's not like married because he's still have it. Lisa shivcha sorry, he's not like married because he's somewhat of a menchayrin. Lisa bas chayrin eini yachal. Because again, he's a half an eved. Yivatul. He's not going to get married and do pruvu. V'aloi loy nivra ilam elo the perio rivya. The whole purpose of the velt is for pruvu. Shenemalei soiva. To stay empty. The whole concept of the velt is to continue and procreate. Where we force the person to not release that eved to make him a mechayr. He has to pay him. He's going to write a bond, whatever it will take to get released. So this is the question. Bein Beis Shammai, Bein Beis Hill, both agree that we have a concept that the eved could tell the rabbi, you must free me. So we're bringing this as a kasha that what? We have a concept of dina de gudei agud. Fem Gemara, no. Shani hacha de agud ika good leka. What's happening is it's a one-way street. Because the rabbi can't buy the eved. Why not? Rashi's masber. Because ain't dama lebein chayrin ela b'sheish. Shein eved every nimkar ela b'sheish. So the only other option is what? Is the eved releasing himself by paying him a bond to the master. It's a one-way street. Even Rav Nachman's going to agree to this concept. Tashma, we're going to try to bring another raya. Shnei achin, there's 2 brothers. Echad ani ve'echad asher. One's poor and one's rich. V'niach le'en avi and merchatz beis abad. He left him a bath house or a pressing place for olives, etc. And the point is, these are massive factories. If you rent it out, you do a lease. Doesn't make a difference if you're poor or not. You're getting the return on this. You split the investment that's coming in the profits. However, what happens if they're using it for themselves? They're not renting it out. So the ani in reality has no purpose for a fancy big factory. He has no money, he has nothing to invest, he's not able to continue using this factory. It's worthless for him. Hare Ashir the Ashir could tell the Ani we're flipping to Yud Gimel and Beis. Kach lecha avodim, get yourself slaves. Use the bathhouse b'merchatz. Kach lecha zaysim, use olives. Uvav aseh v'savad, use this olive press. I don't care. So Frektim Mar L'charetz Araya very clearly that he can't force the brother to buy him out. For the Gemara Hasanami, good ika agud leka. Again, the ani has no money to buy him out, therefore he can't force him to split it up. Again, in good agud needs to be a two-way street in equal position. We're going to try it one more time. Tashma kol shili chalik v'shmai olav cholkin. The halacha is, we said, as long as there's enough that we're going to keep the shame, we split it up in lav. If not, malin oisa b'damin. If not, you can pay him. And the Gemara right now thinks very clearly, you see that you pay him up a damin. So there's a concept. The Hainu, Rashi says, good good. So it's a kasha on Rav Nachman. For the Gemara notes, Tanoi, it's machlekes real. Tanoim the Tanya. Tol ato shir vani pachas. A person says, you know what? You get it's 8 amas. You get your 4. I'll get the 3. Shaimin loy. He has the right to do that. Shimon Gamliel Aimer ain't shaimin loy. No, he has no right to tell him to take 3. And the Gemara understands, hey chidami, like it's a regular scenario that it's 7, he's telling him take 3. My time in the Shimon Gamliel. Elamai, the Gemara thinks, Elav, Chasuri, Mechsura, V'achikam. Tolat Ashir, you're going to take your 4 amas. Vani Pachas, I'll take the 3 amas. Shaimaloi, Vigud, this is the punchline. Vigud, they agud, Nami Shaimaloi. Because this is Mamash concept, good agud. And so therefore, we have a right of Shimon Gamliel, so machlekes tanoim to say good agud or not. For the Gemara, loy, la'olam kidik tani. Like it says, if the Kamras, my time of the Shimon Gamliel, you can ask me, what pshatim Shimon Gamliel says he doesn't have a right to take the 3. Mishum da Amar lei, because the person that's taking the 3 could say, ibit me, if it's with money, bit me. Less me, I have no money to give you. You're going to tell me, you do me a favor, but matana, loy nicheli, d'chsev, like it says, v'soine, matana, siechya. Someone who takes matanas, that's the person's going to live. Therefore, I have a right to say no, to take the 3 amas. Amar la'bayla Rav Yosef. We're going to continue to Gimel and Beis. Hadar of Yehuda, the Hadar of Yehuda is the Shmuli Tanan. We find this in the Mishnah, the Kisve Kodesh, Afa Pisha Shneim writes it. Even though they both want to split up the Nach, Lo Yachlaiku. Ramashmuel, Laishon, who wears this Elabakrach Echot. That's when it's one roll. Avo B'Shnei Krichas Cholkin. Frektem Arv Yisak Adaitach Les Dino. The good are good. If you're going to tell me if Nachman's din is true, why do we have to be talking about one roll? I feel even if it's 2 rolls, the halacha should be less din of the good are good. For the Gemara, take Marsham and Mishashnein writes, it's not a raya. We already said that Gemara is talking about where they both want to split it up, and the Chedesh was by krach echad is a bezayin. Amar Meimer Hilchasa Lamaisa Meimer says the halacha is dino the good they are good, and the halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Amar Avasha Meimar. Hadar of Nachman, we're going to do Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman clearly said, let's do the good agad. Amalei Shmieli. I didn't hear about him. Klaim Lesvile. I don't hold like Rav Nachman. In fact, Marva Loiva, Rav China, Rav Dima, Rav China, Shavik Lavua, Tarsi Amasa. What happened was their father died with 2 maidservants. Chada Yada Afi Vashuli. One knew how to bake and cook. V'chada Yada Pilchav and Avla. One knew how to weave and sew. V'alsuk made their Rava. V'amalu. Last din of the good agad. In such a scenario, you cannot split the shivchas. So you see clearly, there's no concept of din of the good agad. It's a right of Nachman, a kasha and Yehuda. Shani also no. There they both want the shivchas. I want a shivcha that knows how to sew, and I want a shivcha that knows how to bake. When I'm telling you, take only one maidservant, you can't consider that good agad. You can't say this, that if I want one shivcha, it's not din of the good agad. It's nach, it's separate svarm, and I want both. You see, the halach is chalkin. Even though I want both, I take Rav Shama b'shishneim writes, and like we said earlier, they both want it. Therefore, there's no raya to the din of good agad. Tana Rabbanan. Madbek, Adam, Torah, Nevim, Uksuvim. We're going to get into agatas. The halach is a person is able to connect. We're going to have 3 shittas: Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, and Chachamim. Shittas, first shittas from Meir, that a person can put the whole Tanakh in one scroll. Madbek Adam Torah Nevim Ksuvim Ke'achad Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, no. Torah b'fnei atzma, Nevim b'fnei atzma, and Ksuvim b'fnei atzma. Each one has to be separately. V'chachamim Aimer, Called echad ve'echad b'fnei atzma. Each sefer on its own has to be separate. V'amar v'yu the ma'asav v'ayis ben zayin shayla shmayin nevim be'du bakim ke'echad api Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. That he put them together. Chachamim, which is Yeshayim layayu layal echad f'nei atzma, like shitas chachamim, they had to separate all of them. Amar Rabbi ma'asav v'fil ifneinu tayran v'im ksuvim v'du bakim ke'echad, like shitas or meir v'chsharnu. Then the Gemara is going to talk about halachas when we eat as a sefer. Bein chomish lechomish shel Torah, when you finish up Bereshis, you're about to enter Sefer Shemais, you have to give a space of arba sheet in 4 lines. V'chein, bein kol navi lenavi, you have to give they throw in over here the guy Scheiner, and you have to give gimel lines, or for sure 4 lines or 3 lines. Ubenavi shel shneim asar treasar gimel shitin, you give 3 lines. However, umisayim milamatu maschil milamala, when you finish your sefer and it ends at the bottom of the parchment, you do not need to do 4 lines on the next column. You can start from the top. Tana Rabbanan, Haraitza ledabik Torah nevim kesuvim ke'echad medabik va'oisa beroishai. What you do is kedei lagol amud. You have to leave enough space in the beginning of the parchment. Let's say the amud is 1 inch. Ubesaifai, and the end of the sefer Torah, which is much more kedei lagol hekif. It's enough to do a full around. Umesayim, however, melamata. However, if you finish on the bottom, you can start immediately from the top. However, if you want to cut all the svarim together, you're able to be chaytich. My kama, it's pashut, you should be able to split it up. It's even better. For the Gemara, hachi kama, it means to say is, now that we said that a person starts from the top, when the case that you don't need the 4 lines, in such a case, since we're cutting it up, we want it to be that you should start from the top. Why? Because if you're going to end up cutting up the sefer, what's going to happen is it's going to be a gnai, Rashi explains, when there are 4 lines. Frekta Gemara or Ramini, Tchilas, Sefer, Ve'Seifer, Kedei Lago. The beginning and the end of the sefer, the Gemara and the Hamini thinks it's the same measurement. They both need, for example, either 1 inch or 4 inches. Frekta Gemara, Kedei Lago Mai. What are we talking about when we're leaving a space? Kedei Lago Amud. Now the beginning of the sefer Torah only has 1 amud. It has an amud, then it gets rolled, the sefer Torah gets thicker and thicker and thicker, which makes the parchment that you need to have a space of much more tvachim. Kasha hekif. If you tell me you only need 1 inch for the amud, you have a problem that the hekif is going to need a space of more than 1, at least more than 1 tefach. Ikadei logel hekif. You're telling me we're talking about the hekif, that you need a lead, so let's say you need a lead dalat tvachim. Kasha amud, you have a problem with an inch. Amar Nachman Yitzchak, no, we're not talking about that the beginning and the end are the same shear, rather let's stadink tani. The beginning needs kedei lagol almond, which is 1 inch, and the end needs much more, which is many more than 1 inch. Rav Ashi Amar Kitanya he be Sefer Torah. We're talking about over there Sefer Torah. Kedetanya, like it says, Kol Asvarim Niglalim Itchilasim LeSefer Torah. Like today, what do we have? Our Sefer Torah, Sefer Torah Niglal Lem Siyasa. Beyas, it's in the middle. Ve'Aisalei Amud Elach Ve'Elach. Like today, what we have is we have 1 amud and another amud, and they meet up in the middle. That's how our Sefer Torahs look like. Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok kach ayu kaisvei svarim shebishlayim oisin sefreim. They made it like today. They made the Sefer Torah into 2 separate amudim. Tana Abanim. A nice and Sefer Torah like arka yais al kefai, v'lei kefa yaiser al arka. It means to say is that the length and the width of the Sefer Torah need to be exactly equal. So Shalus Rabbi share Sefer Torah bekama. How many tvachim is the Sefer Torah going to be? Amar lahen. Big gvil, if it's a gvil, which is a very thick klaf, shisha tvachim. So it'll end up being va tvachim al va tvachim. Beklaf, they asked him, what about klaf? Yeah, bekama. He answered, any idea, the only way I don't know, the only way to find out, trial and error. Do it. We would have to do it ourselves to get to the shir. Evhuna, Kosav, Shifin, Sifrei, Daraisa, V'leisramil Echad. He wrote 70 Sifrei Torah, and only one of them came out the exact measurement of the length and the width. Rav Achava Yaakov Kosav, Chad Amishcha de Igli, 1 on calfskin. This Ramile calfskin was the hardest klaf to make a perfect measurement, and he hit it on the first try. Yavu be Rabbanan, and now your Rabbanan looked at him in Lashon like he couldn't believe it, and it caused Ayin Hara of Enach Nafshay, and he died from the Ayin Hara. Amle Rabbanan Rav Nuna, Kosav Rab Ami wrote Dalid Meya Sifrei Torah. He wrote 400 Sefer Torahs in life. Amalu, and they realized it can't be that a person can write that many Sefer Torahs in your whole entire life. For the Gemara, Dilma Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe Kosav. Maybe what he wrote is the pasuk Taisus is masber. The Gemara brings the Gemara in Sukkah, says Katane De Ladaber Avim Lam De Torah. Mai, what is he teaching my Torah? Torah, Tziva, Lanu, Maishas, that's what he's teaching us. So some say, Rashi sounds like that they brought all the Seifrim, left that pasuk. When they got at that pasuk, they brought it to him and he wrote the pasuk of Torah, Tziva, Lanu, Maisha. Or he wrote it, the Mashal explained, just wrote it to Talmidim, Torah, Tziva, Lanu, Maisha 400 times. Amalei Rav Ler Zera. Not Rabbi Yanai planted Arba Mea Kamri, 400 vineyards. Amalei Dilma also doesn't make sense. It's too much of a shear. Dilma Shtaim Keneged Shtaim Achas. Yotzezana, which is 2, and then one at the end like a tail. It's only 5, and he did it for Yishuv Eretz, but he only made 5 of them, and that's much more reasonable to say. Frek Gemara, we're now going to ask a kasha, a very lengthy price. It's going to go all the way till Yehuda and Beis to ask what Rebbe said that a gvil is 6 by 6. The measurement of the Sefer Torah needs to be 6 tvachim length, 6 tvachim wide. Now we're going to go through this brisa. Meisvei says as follows: Aron sha'asa Moshe, the Aron that Moshe Rabbeinu did, was a Masayim v'chetzi arka, was 2.5 amas, its length. Va'ama v'chetzi, rachba, his width was 1.5 amas. Va'ama v'chetzi kamasoi, and its height was 1.5. And how much is an amma? Bashisha tvachim. So it's 6 tvachim. 6 times 2.5 is going to be 15, the length. 6 times 1.5 is going to be 9. So it's 9, 15, 9. That's the measurement we need for this aron. And the luchais, how big was the luchais? Arkon Shishon, its length was 6. V'rachman Shisha was 6 by 6. V'avyon, and its width was Shleisha. And it was Menachas Keneged Arka Shalarin, it was in its length of the Aron. So, Kama Luchais Eichlis. How much is the Luchais? If it's 2 Luchais, each one 6. Baron. Shnemasar. It's 6 by 6, it's 12. Shnemasar Tvachim. What are we left with? Nishtar Yusham, Shleisha Tvachim. Again, we said it's 2.5 amas. Amas 6 Tvachim equals 15. We're left of a space of 3 tvachim. Say mehen tefach. Take out a tefach. Why? Chatzi of the kaisel zeh. A half for the thickness of the wall. Chatzi of the kaisel zeh. How much are you left with? Nishtar yusham shnei tvachim. You're down to 2 tvachim. What do you do with those 2 tvachim? Shabahen Sefer Torah munach. The Sefer Torah was there. Shenamra. How do we know Sefer Torah was in there? It says ein ba'aron. There was nothing in the aron. Rak shnei luchos avanim. Hasher niach shamayshur Moshe Rabbeinu put in. And we have a diak, my ain bar and rak. Why does that have to say twice? Miyat achar miyat, ve'ain miyat achar miyat, ella le rabbis. Unless to tell us a reboy that what? Sefer Torah shemunach ba'aron, that Sefer Torah was in the aron. Psak the Gemara as follows: Pinasta aron la'arkoi. You were able to make the cheshbon of the aron for its length. Say a parnes aron la'rachbay. Now let's go through the width. Kama luchas eichlos ba'aron again. Shisha tvachim. Now we said it's 9 because it's am and a half and am is 6 tvachim. Nishtar Yusham, what are we left with? Shleisha tvachim. Say man tefach. Take out a tefach. Chatzi of the kaisel zeh. Chatzi of the kaisel zeh. What are we left with? 2 tvachim. Nishtar Yusham. Shnei tvachim. We're left with 2 tvachim. Shalaya sefer Torah. Nichnas v'yotzik shudachik divrei meir. Meir held the reason why we had a little extra space in order to be able to stick our fingers in and be able to remove and put back the sefer Torah. That is shitas from Meir that am is 6 tvachim. How big is the Torah? We're going to see it's 2. It's only 2 tvachim. That's Mars Kasha. Mars Kasha is going to see in the next psalm the Kasha on Rebbe, how he got the Gvil Shisha and Shisa. So right now it's only 2 tvachim. Rabbi Yehuda wants to say Ba'ama, he held the Am is only Bas Chamisha tvachim. Am is only 5 tvachim, not 6. V'luchos, how big is the Luchos? Arkan Shisha v'Racham Shisha v'Avin Shleisha. We're not arguing Bein Rameir, Bein Rabbi Yehuda that we all hold that the Luchos is 6 by 6 by 3. So let's go through it. Munachas ba'arka shalon. So kam aluchas eichlais. How much aluchas eating ba'aron shneimesar tvachim? 12 tvachim. Nishtar Yisham. Again, if it's only 5 tvachim, not 6 tvachim, 2.5 is only 12.5 tvachim by 7.5. Because amma v'chetzi is 5 plus 2.5, 7.5 by 7.5 by 12.5. So nishtar Yisham. If the luchas eat up 12 tvachim, we're only left with a half a tefach. Nishtar Yisham chetzi tefach. What are we going to do for the etzbel kaisel zeh? 1/4 of a tefach for the kaisel. The etzbel kaisel zeh, and therefore you used up all the room of the aron. Zakting mar pinasta aron la'arkoi. Okay, we went through the cheshbon of the ayrich of the land. Say ufarnis aron la'arachbe. Let's go cheshbon the width. Kamaluchas eichlis ba'aron again. Shisha tvachim, and we said it's 7.5 because Amos 5 tvachim. Kamaluchas eichlis ba'aron shisha tvachim. What are we left with? Nishtar yisham tefach umechsa. If it's 7.5 and it's 6, we're left with tefach and a half. Say mahan chetzi tefach. Etzbel kaisel zev, etzbel kaisel zev. They take out the mechsa like that. We don't have to change the taich word of etzbel would mean 1/4 of a tefach instead of saying 1/6 of a tefach. Nishtar yisham tefach. Then if we make the cheshbon of 7.5, we had 6 for the luchais, a half for the etzbel We're left with 1 tefach. What are you going to do with that tefach? Sheboy amudim. And there they had beautiful silver amudim. Shenamar aperinyan loy asaloi amelach shloim. Shloim made himself a beautiful chair. Me'atze levanon. From woods, from Lebanon, Amud of Asa Kesef. He made the sticks of the chair out of silver. If he does say the back of the chair was zav, merkava agaman, and the place where he sat was made out of beautiful purple linen. And we're trying to bring a drasha like the Beis Hamikdash, who then the amudav was also kesef. The arges and the arges sheshigru by plish. And what happened was the plishim and the mechama were able to get the aron, but once they got the aron, tragedy after tragedy was happening. So they decided to return it. So they took 2 animals, they put it on a wagon, they filled it with gold, and they sent back the aron. Argos sheshigru by plishtim dairin, they sent it back as a present like Esau for the Yisrael. Munach matzida was left on the side. Shenamar, like it says, ves kli azava sheshavaisim, like go return all the silver. Asham, it should be an asham for us that we took it. The sima ba'argos matzida should be on the side. V'shilachtem oisav halach, and you should send it off on his way. And Taka went. The olav sefer Torah munach, and there the sefer Torah was on it. Shenamar, like it says, lakoyach es sefer Torah azeh, put the sefer Torah over. Samta oisav, they put it mitzad aron bris Hashem. The Mar says mitzadu munach, however, was on the side. V'loy b'seicha, not in it. Umani mikayim ein ba'aron rak. What are you going to do with the words ein ba'aron? The Mar answers le rabbi shivrei luchai shemenachem ba'aron. We made over there again. We have a miyat achamiyat, and we're going to make it to tell us that you put all the luchais in the aron. Now this is the kasha we were trying to get to. We said Rabbi says that what? It's 6 by 6. So frek the Gemara, what's going on? Let's go through it. Sefer Torah. You, Rabbi, you're telling me back it's 6 tvachim. So a kefai is va tvachim. Let's go through it. Mechti. We have a concept. This is more engineering already. That kol sheyesh be kefai shleish tvachim. Whatever's thick 3 tvachim wide. Yeah, whatever's width is 3 tvachim. Yesh by reichiv, its width is a tefach. So it's called 3 by 1. So if you make it 6 tvachim according to Rabbi, what are you left with? 2 tvachim. To answer your question, how big is the Sefer Torah was 2 tvachim? But the kasha is the kivan del mitziyasa niglo. Once you're telling me you roll the Sefer Torah to the middle, beini between the amudav, betray pushchi, right? And that's how we made the Sefer Torah like today. Hey Chiyasif, how can it sit exactly in 2 tvachim? Because between the space when you roll up a Sefer Torah, even today when you pull out of the Sefer out of the Aron Kodesh, you'll see this extra space. Yaakov Sefer Ezra Litchilaso and Nigla. The way they wrote it was with 1 amud they rolled it. Frak the Gemara Vakati Trey Betray Hechiyasav. We learned earlier in Rameir that you needed to have 2 extra tvachim for what? To give us space to get our fingers in and out. So how could you tell me the 2 tvachim were exactly 2 tvachim in there? Nigla Hechiyasav. Marvashi the Karech Bay Porta Vekarchaleo. What happened was we rolled the Sefer Torah almost 2 tvachim. And then we continued the parchment and made another tiny little roll on top of it. Like that, there's not bidyuk 2 tvachim. You're able to get the Sefer Torah in and out. Rav Yehuda, okay, this is all good for Rameir. Rav Yehuda mekmei the leisei argas. Before they sent this argas, Sefer Torah hechiavo. Where was the Sefer Torah? It clearly says only when the Pelishtim sent back the argas. Hechiaviyotze, where it's sitting, the Mar says dapaf enough minei. There's a beautiful little piece of wood that came out, a shelf, v'yasev iluya Sefer Torah, and that's where they put the Sefer Torah on top of the shelf. Fraktimor, all this is going good, very nice. Lashita Reb Yehuda. Vera Meir, Hai Mitzad Aroin Mayavale. What did he do on the side of the Aron? What did he learn from the Drasha Mitzad? Right? We made a diak. Mitzad Aron to tell you that Mitzad Munach V'Layin Misaycha make a diak to tell me a Mitzad Achamiyat for Shever Luchas. What is Rameir going to do? Mayavale Homivale, the Tim Misnach Le Mitzad Le Misnach Meini Luchi. They're going to put Taka, the Sefer Torah on the side of the luchas, not in between the 2 luchas. So la'ilam, and that's taka what it is, b'gvim and atzad. It's inside the aron, on the side of the luchas is a nice Sefer Torah that's 2 tvachim, and there's an extra little roll on top like that. It's not biduk 2 tvachim like that to get the fingers in and out. V'rameir amudei heichi avakaimi. Where was the amudim? For the Gemara, Mivrei and Echanami was on the outside. Rameir shever luchas d'menachem ba'ar minoli. According to Rameir, where's he going to make his drasha to know shever luchas? The Gemara, Nafkale Mer Rav Huna Dam Rav Huna Mai Dichsev. What's it say in the pasuk? Asher Nikra Shem Hashem Tzevokos. Yoshev Akruvim Olav to tell you Melame that the Shel Luchais Vishiver Luchais Munachim Ba'arin, the double Lashon Hashem has come to tell me also the Shiver Luchais. V'idach, what's the Yehuda going to do with that? The Humi Vaylech Rabbi Yechanan Dam Rabbi Yechanan Hashem Yechaim Melamed Shah Hashem by telling me Hashem twice. It's coming to tell me Shah Hashem V'chol Kinuyav, the Yod Vavke, the 42 letters Shem Hashem. All different shemas were in there. Munachin, ba'aron. V'idach, what's our going to do? Nami v'ayla l'hachi in a chanami. Taka learned it from the Shem. You're going to ask me, Ela shevrei luchais, the munachin ba'aron min nafkale. Where do you know it from? Nafkale, the Tanya of Yosef. The Tanya of Yosef, Ashet in the pasuk, Asher shibarta. V'santem and lamet to tell you, Shibarta, why you mentioned shevrei luchais, to tell you, Shah luchais, v'shevrei luchais, munachin ba'aron. V'idach, what are you going to do it for? How's he going to know this from? Tashiv Luchas Ahu Mivay Lechader Shlakish Tamesh Lakish Asher Shibarto Amalek Kadosh Baruch LaMoshe Yashakayach Shibarto is given his approval that it was the right thing to do. What Moshe Rabbeinu did was broke the Luchas. Okay, we are going to continue. The next Chelek is going to start with the Seder Nevi'im, Seder Ksuvim, and then we're going to continue right into Eiv Tel Kamat, the end of the parak. Tana Rabbana Sidron Shel Nevi'im. Tana Rabbana Sidron Shel Nevi'im was as follows: was Yeshua, V'Shoiftim, Shmuel, Umalachim, Yirmiyah, Yecheskel, Yishai. Then we had V'Shneimesar, we had the Treasar. Frak the Gemara, Mechti, Hoshea was Kadim. How do we know Hoshea was first before certain Malachim? Dechsev, Tchilas, Diber, Hashem, by Hoshea. Rebbeinu Shalom first spoke to the Navi Hoshea first. Frak the Gemara, V'chim Hoshea, Diber Tchilas. Is that really true? V'aloi mi Moshe Rabbeinu v'ad Hoshea kam Nevi'im. Oh, there's plenty of Nevi'im. V'am Rabbi Yochanan, no, Sheitchila la'arba Nevi'im, shenisnabu ba'oisa perak. In those times, he was the first. Who are these four Malachim? Ve'elohein, Hoshea, V'Yeshaya, Amos, Umicha. So frak the Gemara, if you look at the Seder Nevi'im, Hoshea is in Treasar. It's the first sefer in Treasar. So for Ekdemar, why is it the end of Treasar? Why is it in Treasar? If you look through the Seder, you clearly see it says Yeshaya first before Treasar. So let it be first. V'liktem el Yeshaya bereisha. You should put Hoshea before Yeshaya. For the Gemara Kiva and the Chsiv Nuvoase Gabi Chagi Zachar Malachi. And where is Chagi Zachar Malachi? It's the mamish, the last Svarim in Treasar. I got it. Now that you tell me it's in Treasar, so we put it in Treasar. But why are we not separating the Sefer on its own? Since it's a very small, it's only a few prakim, we're nervous it would get lost throughout the history, therefore we wanted to put it together with all the Sarim. Mirchas. Mechti. Yeshaya Kadem Yirmiyah V'Cheskel. Yeshaya was before Yirmiyah V'Cheskel. And if you look inside, you clearly see it was afterwards. It says Yirmiyah V'Cheskel, then Yeshaya. So Yeshaya Bereisha. Before Yirmiyah and Yecheskel, family, the Markiv and the Malachim, Sefer Chorbani, which talks about the end of the Sefer Malachim, talks about the Chorban, Yirmiyah's Kulei Chorbani. Yecheskel, Reisha Chorbani, starts off with Chorban, Sefer Nechemta. However, Yeshaya was Kulei Nechemta, therefore what? Samchinon Chorbana leChorbana, V'Nechemta leNechemta. That is Seder Nevi'im. Now we're going to hop into Seder Shel Ksuvim. Seder Shel Ksuvim is as follows: V'Sefer Tehillim, V'Iyuv. Umishlei Kahela Shir Vikinas Daniel Megillas Esther, Ezra, then Medivrei Hayomim. That's where the Nach ends. Frak the Gemara V'Lamanda Amar Eiv B'Mei Moshe Haya. Manda Amar, which you're going to see there are many shittas when Eiv was. We're going to go through it in a few moments, all about Eiv, and we're going to see many shittas exactly what time in history Eiv was. Liktam El Eiv Bereisha. So put Eiv much earlier. For the Gemara Schuli Be'Paranusa Loimis Chalinina. We don't want to start with Paranus, and we're going to see Eiv is full of tragedies. For the Gemara Rus Nami Paranasi. Rus is also Paranus. For the Gemara Paranus Dislach Charis. It has a good ending. What's the ending? Rabbi Yochanan Laman Kamar Shema Rus. Why is Rus called Rus? Shiyatzim Mimena David Melch came out of Rus. Shiur Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Shir said Shvachos and Lashon Rus, Lashon Rava. He gave the Rebbeinu Shalom. He satiated him with many shirs to the Shvachos. So Rus has a very good ending. Therefore, we mention it. To me, Kosfon. Who wrote the Sefer? Now we're going to go. Who wrote the Tanakh? Moshe Kosef Sefroi Uparshas Bilam. The Eiv. Yeshua, that's where we see them. Eiv is in time of Moshe, and that's where we're going to get into Eiv. Yeshua Kosef Sefroi. Yeshua wrote a Sefer Shemona Psukkah Shabbatayda. Shmuel Kosef Sefroi V'Shaitim V'Rus. David Kosef Sefer Tehillim. But if you go through the Tehillim, there's many other people involved. Lametzech Mizal David, Lametzech and Ezrachi. We're going to go through right now. Kosef Sefer Tehillim Adei Sarah Zekanim. Ayidei Adam Arishon. Ayidei Malki Tzedek. Vayidei, like we say, Tefillah Moshe Shalakim. Vayidei Avram. Vayidei Moshe. Vayidei Haman. It says Maskela Haman. Vayidei Yudusal. Lametzech Yudusan. Vayidei Asaf. Vayidei Shleishav Nei Kairach. So Tehillim had many people involved. Yirmiyah Kosef Sefer with me. He had many help to write David to write Sefer Tehillim. Yirmiyah Kosef Sefer, he wrote a Sefer Malachim V'Kinnis. Chizkiv Asiyasik Kosvei. What did he write? We have a Siman Yamshak Siman that means Yeshaya for the Yod, Mishlei for the Mem, Shir Shem for the Shin, V'Kahelis. Achik Desek Dailuk All Kosvu. Kuf Nam and Dimel Gimel is a Siman that what's Kuf is V'Yecheskel, Nun is V'Shnemasar, Dalos for Daniel, and Gimel is Megillas Esther. Esther Kosef Sefer, V'Yicha Shal Divrei Yomim, and he wrote all his lineage Adloi. He didn't go up to Bavel. Uman Aske, who finished it up? Nechemia ben Chechalia. Amar Yeshua Kaseh Sefer V'Shmona Psukim Shebetayra. He wrote the 8 Psukim in the Torah. Tanya command Am Shmona Psukim Shebetayra. Who wrote it? Yeshua Kaseh, Yeshua wrote it. The Tanya says in the Torah, Vayamas Sham Moshe Eved Hashem. Now Moshe Rabbeinu died. Frak Gemara, Efshar Moshe Mace. And he died because of Yamash Moshe. That can't be. Ela'at kan Kasav Moshe. Mikan Ve'elach the sheet is going to hold. Kasav Yeshua wrote it. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. V'amelav Nechem Yamelav Shemin. Efshar Sefer Torah. Chasar Isachis. That can't be. V'chsev state. L'koyach et Sefer Torah hazeh. Ela'at kan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oimer. V'kaisav. Moshe Oimer v'kaisav. Rabbi Shalom would talk, and then Moshe would say it, repeat it, then write it. Mikan Ve'elach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Oimer. Moshe would just write it with what? Kaisab itma, with tears, like that. It wasn't permanent, and he didn't say it, so he never said anything sheker b'peh or sheker b'chsav. Kamosh and Amar La'alon, we find by Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah told his sefer, his scribe was Baruch. V'yayim alahem Baruch. Mepiv yikra elai, from my words you should talk. It's called Ram Eilav. Ani kaisab, I'm right. This is Baruch talking. He was a sefer. So you see the concept. The way it worked was that a sefer, he would talk and then he would write it. Allah Sefer B'diyai Keman Ozla Hadar Amar Yeshua Barabba. Who's this going like Amar Gidam Rav Shmona Sukim Shebetayra? The halach is Yachid Kaira Eisens. We have a Shinai suddenly. The Gemara wants to say that's a Raya Lema Rabbi Yehudi, because Rabbi Yehudi holds that what? It was Yeshua that wrote the Sefer Torah. Suck the Gemara, it's not really true. But they like Rav Shem Filu Temer Rav Shem and Hoyel Vishtanu Vishtanu. The reason why Yachid Kaira Eisen is because Moshe Rabbeinu was Mishana and he wrote it with his tears. Yeshua Kaseh Sefer. Suck the Gemara, how could that be? Vakseva Yamas Yeshua Ben Nun Eved Hashem. So the Gemara, the Aska Eliezer Elazar finished it. V'chsev Elazar ben Aaron Meis. The Aska Pinchas finished it. Shmuel calls it Sefer. How could that be? V'chsev Shmuel Meis. The Aska God the Chayzev and Asanavi. David calls it Sefer Tehillim. I day what? I day Asara Scheiner. Frak the Gemara. V'lechsher Nami Eson Ezrachi. And who's Eson? Eson we're going to see. Amarav Eson Ezrachi. Who Avraham? How do we know that the word Eson Ezrachi is Avraham? Ksiv Hacha. Like it says, Maskil Eson Ezrachi in Tehillim. In the beginning of Peitas, V'chsev Hasam, Mi Heir Mi Mizrach Tzedek. Who's going to inspire us from the east? Who is that person from the east? It was Avram Avinu. So we see that we have Haman is Avram Avinu. Moshe, sorry. Zaktimar Kachashiv, Moshe Kachashiv Haman. Haman, there was 2 separate people. Haman, there was Haman in Tehillim, and there's Haman that's Moshe Rabbeinu. V'amerav. Sorry, I said it wrong. Let's go back. Amar Rav Eson Ezrachi. Who is this? Avram. Ksiv Hacha Eson Ezrachi. Says in Tehillim Eson Ezrachi. V'ksiv Hasam Mi Heir Mizrach Tzedek. Zok the Gemara now. Nagma Kachashiv Moshe. V'Kachashiv Haman. You're putting Moshe and you're pushing Haman. Amar Rav Haman's and Moshe. Haman is one. Haman is Moshe. Why are we separating the two? Ksiv Hacha. It says over here in Melachim Haman Ezrachi. V'Ksiv Hasam, and it says in Ben Midbar Lechin Adi Moshe V'Chol Beisi. Never knew. So we see clearly that Haman is Moshe. And for the Gemara, Trey, Haman, Havu. There was 2 people, Haman. One was Moshe Rabbeinu, one was a person named Haman. Moshe, and he was part of the Levim. Moshe Kaseh Sifroi, Parshas Bilam, Ve'ir, Misayla, Reb Levi, Bar Lachma, the Omer of Levi, Bar Lachma. Now we're about to start going into Eov. Eov, Bimei, Moshe, Haya. When was Eov's times? Now, to give out a simple Agdama, why is it so complicated when Eov was? We usually know with history, the Scheiner explained that Eov, the Sefer Eov was lost. And what happened was, because of that, many Shitas came out exactly the history of Eov. Some say Eov was Bechlal Moshe, which we're going to see in a moment. Eov b'mei Moshe hayek sevhacha mi yitoin Ephai. The Yichtavun Milai, we're going to pull out from the word Ephai. There it talks about, in the pasuk in Eov, that mi yichtavun mi yitin Ephai v'yichtavun Milai. Who's going to write more words? Mi yitem a sefer v'yichaku. And then it says, V'chsev Hasam, and it says, in Shemois, B'ma Yivada Ephai. So we're trying to connect just like in Eov and by Moshe, they both have the word Ephai. We want to say Eov was Moshe. The Gemara is not impressed. Just every time you have the word Ephai, you're going to tell me that history means it's Eov. We find many other cases. We find them by Yitzchak, Esav. So where do we know that Esav was Dafka Moshe? And the Gemara says, Ve'ema b'mei Yaakov. Also we have the word Ephraim. Kain Ephraim Zayis Asu. Ve'ema b'mei Yosef. Tichsev Ephraim Rayim. So the Gemara is trying to say it's very simple. The word Eifa is not megala to us exactly the history of Eve. The Gemara says, we're not really coming from the beginning of the pasuk of Eifa. We're coming from the end of the pasuk. If you finish the pasuk, it says, meet, and by Sefer who's going to write it, the Sefer Yichakun is going to inscribe it. And we all know, Maishu Dekri Mechaykik, Maishu Rabbeinu was considered the inscriber. Dechsev Ayar Reishis Loi Kisham Chelkas Mechaykik Safan was reserved for who? For the Mechaykik. And who was that? Was Moshe Rabbeinu. This is Shita number 1. Rav Levi Shita. Rav is going to say, Amar Iyov b'mei meraglim hayak. Ksiv hacha ish. Aya ba'aretz utz. Iyov Shemai. He was in the place of Utz, and his name was Iyov. Ksiv Atzam, and it says by the meraglim, Hayesh ba'etz. Is there a tree going on? So we're trying to say, Midami hacha utz hasam eitz. How you compare utz and eitz? Fan for the Gemara, Hachi Kama Maishal Yisrael. This is Maishal was telling the meraglim, the Klaisal. Yeshna la'isa adam sheshnaisa v'ruchitz ka'etz. There's a person in Eretz Yisrael who's like a tree. Umegan al darik ka'etz. Just like the tree has shade that protects the sun, so too there's a halaga person. His name is Iyov, and he's like a tree that's protecting us. Yosef ahumer abban kamei der shmol ben chamini v'yosef kama Iyov loy haya v'loy nivra. It's never happened. Ela mashal hayo, just a mashal. Lecha Makrat says. The Gemara says, Ish haya, lashon that in Metzias it was. If it's about utz, ish mai, the Gemara, you see the concept haya. Why do you have to tell me haya that it happened if it's only a mashal? Take out the word. You're going to tell me we find the Larosh in Kol, this is also a mashal, that the poor has nothing, Kim Kifs, Akras, Ketana has one sheep, Ashekana, V'yachiv, V'chai, and then it has a bas. And the Gemara, if you look at the Psukim, says the end of Shmuel Aleph, Vatila Kavas. Again, that's clear, there's no argument that it was a mashal. So why do you have to tell me that he had a daughter? So Elamai, just by saying the word Ahya is not a raya. Mi have el Moshel ba'ama, Chanami, I'll tell you Moshel ba'ama. Frek the Gemara, Bam Kasha, Im Kain, Shmoi v'Shem Irai Lama. Why do I need to tell me if it's only a Moshel? Why in the world would I need to tell me its name of its city and its own name? After the third cheetah, when was Iyov? Me'oile Goyla Haya. Who Beis Medrash was Betavaria. Haya. Meisvei, Frek the Gemara, how could that be? You tell me it's Me'oile Goyla, Meishnaisov. Shel Iyov was when Misha Shenichnusu Yisrael Mitzrayim V'Achiet. So when was that? That was many years prior. How could that be? For the Gemara, no Ema, just amount of years. Kim Misha Shenichnusu Mitzrayim V'Achiet, which was what? 210 years. And we know that Iyov ended up getting the brachas, which you're going to see. He got double everything. He was 70 years old at the time, and his bracha was going to live another 140. 140 plus 70 is 210, and that's what the Gemara is trying to say. Meisvei, Frektimar Shiva Nevi'im Nisnabu La'umay Sa'ilam. There were 7 Nevi'im that got Nevuah La'umay Sa'ilam. And the Gemara is going to bring that La'umay Sa'ilam point is we're trying to think that Iyov was not a guy. Iyov was not a yid, sorry. Ve'elain, who is this? Bilam La'aviv Iyov. This is the punchline Iyov. Elifaz etemani Bilda Shuchi V'tzayf and Amasi. Ve'eluav ben Barachal Abuzi. So Frekti Gemara, so you clearly see that he was a Navi from the Umas Island. He wasn't a Yid. So Gemara, you have a problem with this. Amal Tamech Eliyahu ben Barachal Am Yisrael Haven. We know he's a Yid. How do we know this? Vaksiv Mishpachas Reim in Rashi's Masber. Either Mishpachas Reim is Avram, Loshin Reim, or from Miyachisim Elamai. We wouldn't be Miyachisim if he wasn't a Yid. Ella, rather he was a Vadi who's a Yid. But in Vuya in Vilumas Island, the primary objective was to give him the of the Umas Island. Hachinami Iyov. Invi lumas island. Fact the Gemara article Nevi all Neviim mi loy invuye lumas island. Fan the Gemara hasam ikunu v'sayli Yisrael. Typical Navis. Who is he giving the Nevi'as to? He's giving it to Klai Yisrael. Hacha ikunu v'sayli lumas island. Fact the Gemara meisvei. Chatzid haya where lumas island. This is the kasha. It says clearly umas island. What's it say? V'iyov shemai v'lay balaylam kadei lagabas charai. He was only here because he had his schar because he was a guy we're learning. Hey, Kadosh Baruch Hu alav yisurit. Heschil Megar from Megad, he's starting cursing at the Rebbeinu Shalom once he got his Yisurim, Kafalai, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Schar Balam. Is that why? Kedei Letardam in Ha'ilam Haba. In order that he shouldn't get Schar in the Ha'ilam Haba. So what do we clearly see? Iyov was not a Yid. For everything more, Tanai. The Tanya Balazaimer, Iyov was when be made Shafite, Hashayftim, Haya. It was a time where even we had to judge, even the Shayftim. They were so crooked. Shenema, Hein Atem, Hein Atem. Kulcham chazisem. Don't you all see what's going on? Which is Iyov was talking to his friends that were living in such a wicked time. Who are you to give me musar? Eze dar shekula hevel. Which dar was full of corruption? The That was one mandama. Another mandama was Rishon ben Karchaim. It was when Bimei Achashverosh Haya Shenema. It says V'loi Nimtza Nashim Yafais Kibnais Eiv. And when we were looking for beautiful women, B'chol Arts, Ezu Darshan is Bakshu Boy Nashim Yafais. Avayim. It says the Darshan Achashverosh when we were looking for the Nair queen. In fact, the Mar Ve'ema Bimei David. Chsev by David Melech Vivakshu Naira Yafa. However, the Gemara Hasam B'chol Gvul Yisrael. Regarding David Melech was only Gvul Yisrael. Hacha by Achashverosh, like we know. He was the Melech in the whole entire world. He was at that time. Like it says, like it says very clearly that at the time, this is a pasuk in Eov, that when the Shva fell, they killed everybody. No, Eov was when he was at the time of the Kazdim, Shenemar, Kazdim, Shamush, Leisha, Russian, they put 3 divisions, and they started killing everybody, which we're going to see by the Klal soon. Eov was when Bimei Yaakov Haya. V'Dina bas Yaakov nasa. Eov married Dina. Ksiv hachad. We know this says Kedaber achas and avelois tidabedi. Then where do we have Nevala? V'Ksiv hasam by Shechem ki Nevala asa b'Yisrael. However, Chula tonight comes out that everyone holds Chula tonight Svirulu. The Eov Yisrael Hava. When was Eov? He was a Yid. Lebar me Yishayim, that clearly hold that he's Umas Ha'ilam. The Yishayim said he was Yaakov. How do we know that if your time is a Yaakov Avinu, you're Umas Ha'ilam? The Yisakadaytach Umas Ha'ilam have a Basra, the Shachim Maisha can be Mishar Shechina Alive the Kachavim. And the Yishayim hold Ev was at the time of Yaakov. V'amamar Bikash Maisha Shalai Tishra Shechina Alive the Kachavim. The Shechina should not go on the Alive the Kachavim. But Nasanlai Shenamar V'Riflein Aniv Amecha, that our nation is different. And therefore, the Nevi'im are not going to get Nevi'is. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Dairoi Shel Eif was shot to Bezima Haya Shenemar. Don't you see Hanatam Kuchem Chazisem? Why you guys are looking and not sneezing stuff? Who are you to give me Musar? You guys are not even have the right to give me Musar because you guys are not doing Shmir Sanayim B'chsev. Like it says, Shuvi Shalamis, Shuvi Nechsaba. They're going to look at them. Ema Frekdamar. We find Chazain. It could also be a Lashon Nevuah. But Nevuah the Chsev Chazain Yishai Ben Amad. There was talking about Nevuah. In Cain, Lama is a Hevel Tavalu. What check is him saying, who are you to give Musar? Lama leave. Like we said earlier, Bimei Shvaita Shaiftim Dar Sheshayfed Shvativ was a time, a generation that they would even have the judges were so corrupt that what happened was, I'm a lie. The judge would tell the defendant, remove a toothpick. But the point is, refrain from simple infractions. And I'm a lie, and he would answer him back, before you start telling me about the little minor infractions, let's hear how corrupt you guys are. Sounds like today a little. I'm a lie. Kaspecha ha yolisikim. Your kesef was counterfeit. I'm a lie. Savecha mol b'mayim. He said, oh, your wine is mixed with water. You guys are even more corrupt the way you guys operate. Whoever it says the Malchus Shva was a lady, Ein El Atei really was a man. My Malchus Shva, Malchus of the Shva, the Malchus the Lashon of a Zachar. Some say we're going to stick still with the Lashon of a female, and rather it means that she was Daka the queen, but the way she got her monarchy was not through marriage, was rather through her own merit. Now we're going to go through the Psukim of Eve. They're talking to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Sata came along. What? Rosh Hashanah what? This is a Gemara Rosh Hashanah?
No, this was on the day.
Oh, this was a day of the Rosh Hashanah. Yes, they went up on Rosh Hashanah to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Understand? The sun is going to start being Mekachev. The Yom was Rosh Hashanah. V'yavo b'nei Elokim l'satsim l'Hashem. V'yavo gam ha'satan v'saycham. And the Satan joined along. V'yayim Hashem el ha'satan. Me'ayin tavim, where are you coming from? V'yan ha'satan v'gaymer. And he said I was coming from the whole world. Dam l'fon of Rebbeinu Shalom. Sasti b'cholak ha'olam kulay. I wandered the whole entire world. V'lay matzasi namakavd chavram. I did not find anybody like Avram Avinu Shenema Shamarta like Kumis Alch Ba'aretz L'Arka Rachba. You're going to get the whole entire land. Kilachatne. Now, Filahachi, what happened was, we all know, B'shah Shalai Matzah Makam Likvar Sarah. He couldn't do it at Shekana. He had to pay money. B'damei Shekel Kesef. Lahir Achmid Esach. He never once questioned you, the Rebbeinu Shalaylam. V'yayim Hashem El Satan Asamta Libchal Avdi Eve. Rebbeinu Shalaylam told me, what about Eve? Kain Kamay Ba'aretz. Regarding what the Rebbeinu Shalom said regarding Eve, is more than Avram. The Ilu Ba'Avram Ksiv, it says, Ki ati yadati now, Ki yare elikim. He had Yira. Ato be'iksiv ishtam v'yashar. He was also a yasher yar lekim v'samei. He also removed himself from evil. Mai v'samei ra. What did he mean? He moved himself from ra. Amar Abba Bashmuel Iv vatrim b'memayna haya. He was mevater with his money. That what happened was in those days, minaga shalaylam naisin chetzi pruta lechanvani. He would give. They didn't want to give the change. It was such a minute amount. One of a 192, almost one of 200 of a zuz. A very small amount, and they were so carged they didn't want to give it. But Eve held it's not money. V'samei he's going to stay away from it, and he gave it to the chanvani totally. Eve vitr mishaloi, and he would give it to the pile. Sorry. Vayana satan es Hashem, the Satan told the Rebbeinu Shaloi, vayimar achinam yari Eve elikim. It's not a big deal for Eve today to be a Yiras elikim. He has everything he needs. He was very rich. He had many children. Everything was working out for him. What's it mean when we said whoever took a prut miyim is barach? Parats was all over. His livestock parts went against nature. We all know the Zavim, the wolves, Hargim, they eat the goats. Mikneu shel was the opposite. Izim, Hargim, is Zavim. The goats were able to attack the wolves. V'ulam, shlachna, this is the Rebbeinu Shalom talking, shlachna, oh. It says, he's saying, the Eve is saying, V'ulam, shlachna, yotcha v'ga b'chol ha'sheloi. Go start hurting Eve, we'll see what happens. Im lo yapanav yivarecha, son, he's going to change his tune. V'yoyim Hashem al satan, so the Rebbeinu Shalom told the satan, hinei kol ha'sheloi biyadecha. Do whatever you want to him. Rak elav al tishlach yadecha. However, make sure you do not put your finger on him and hurt him. The guy was that day, where by the house of the Bechar. Umalach Ba'aliv, the Malach came. And the livestock were out grazing. Umaya Baka Yucharshois, what were they out there plowing? And the Chamaris were nearby, grazing nearby. What's the consummate lamaba? That the grazing happened immediately. The plowing, as soon as they plowed and planted, just to Mir Tashem in the times of Mashiach, what's going to happen is we're going to get pregnant and have babies the same day. We're going to continue in the clothes of Eov. Came and said this is what was left. They came, the Kasdim and Shleish Yerushim, 3 divisions. What happened? They took all your moment. And this is going, wow, it doesn't even stop. The whole having a nice, beautiful party. When Tazayin went off the top of the Amid. And there's suddenly a big wind. Me'eva HaMidbar came from the Midbar, Yiga Ba'arba Pinas Abayis, and it knocked down the whole entire structure and killed everybody. Vayipal al Narim, but what happened? Yakim Eve got up immediately. Vayikras Me'ilah, he destroyed, he tore off his coat, Yugasar, and he plucked out his ears. Vayayim Aram Yatsasi Mebetanimi. I came out, Aram, from my mother, Aram Oshev. Shama Hashem Nasan, Hashem Lokach. Yehi Shem Hashem Avarich. Bechol Zayis Loichat Evil, Nasan Tifel Lekim. He was not minagid against the Rebbeinu Shalom. Again, another time it happened. Where are you coming from? I'm coming from going exploring the world. I'm in the front of Rebbeinu Shalom. I went throughout the world. La'arka le'rachba kilecha tnena ubishah shebikash lik v'sara le'matza makan le'kayvra v'la'hirer and afa bikain. He never rebelled yachimi desecha v'yayim Hashem al satan samtach livcha l'avdi Eve. Did he look at my Eved Eve came kamay ba'aretz v'idenu machzik b'tumasa, and he's still saying strong v'atisein v'ay le'v'alachilam, and you caused me to cause him yisurim for no reason because he's able. He never once rebelled against you. If never the pasuk saying Navadi cannot say such thing, Adam, Shemesis and Isam and Isas, like Kiriyahu, you're able to convince the Rebbeinu Shalom do something wrong. The Masnisa Tana, we have a Beis that says Yoyer the Sultan Masa. He comes down. This is what we do. He convinces us to do Averis, and as soon as he finishes us to do the Averis, and he goes up Umargiz and he bothers the Rebbeinu Shalom, Naita Rishos. And he asked the Rebbeinu Shalom and Naitel and Hashem, and he takes in the Shama. Vayana Satan es Hashem vayomer or ba'ar or v'chol asher le'ish yitim nafshay. Ulam shlachna yadcha l'gal atzmei l'absari ki lo yapanecha yivarecha. The Rebbeinu Shalom told the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's very nice. You took away his children, However, he saved himself. So he's trying to bring out a point, just like a person takes out a knife and tries to hurt someone in his face or pick up his arm to protect himself. So he's sacrificing a limb to save himself. So Eiv's still happy. He's like, God didn't kill me yet, so he took away my children instead of me. Shmar. Which means to say is, no problem. You could touch him, inflict him with a lot of wounds. However, don't kill him. The Satan left, and he went and he gave him terrible, terrible afflictions. He was going through many, many sufferings. However, he didn't die. Why? It's like trying to break a barrel of wine and keep it onto the wine. The malach, when he afflicts, he kills. For him, he had to hurt them in such pain to the brink of death by not killing him. Who Satan, who Yetzirah, who Malach HaMavis. The Satan is the Yetzirah and the Malach HaMavis. Who Satan, how do we know this? The Satan left Vayachasiv. Who Satan, the Chsev Yetzirah, Satan Menes Hashem, who Yetzirah, how do we know this? Chsev Hasam, Rak, Ra, Lashon Bad, Kol HaYoyim, Chsev Acha. It says, Rak, Esnafshoy, Shmar, Rak, Elo, Batishach Yidecha. Who Malach HaMavis, how do we know this? Because it says, the Chsev, Rak, Esnafshoy, Shmar, make sure you don't take his soul. Amma b'didik hayom, Elamai, he really wanted to kill him, but he held off. Amr Rav Levi, Satan, Pnina, L'Shem Shemayim, Niskavnu, both the Satan and Pnina, both were L'Shem Shemayim. Satan, Pnina first, we're going to go through Pnina. How do we know this? Dechsev, V'chasa, Tzarasa, Gamkas, Bavur, Herima. What happened was, Satan bothered Chana. Chana was childless to chep her in order that she should complain to the Rebbeinu Shalom. What? What did you say? B'chiasata, Tzarasa. We're talking about Pnina. Oh, I skipped the line. Amadik Hayamna. Satan, keeping the Chazarah Kadosh Baruch Hu, did not didaite Basir. Thank you. I skipped the line. Once Eve, what happened was Eve saw that the Satan saw that the Rebbeinu Shalom was very busy with Eve. He said, "Amachas v'sholem mishalei l'rachmanusei d'Avram." We all know Klai Yisrael saved every day from Schus and Avram. Pnina dichsiv. First, and then Pnina v'chiasata tzarasa, the tzara which was Scheiner, her co-wife. Gamkaz bavur harima kisaga Hashem ad rachma, like we all know, Chana was childless. So he shepherded her in order that she should daven. Darshav achaber Yaakov vanunya asa satan nashkel chare, from appreciation for what he did, he kissed his Eve. No, the Satan. No, not Eve. Satan didn't kiss Eve. Satan kissed of achaber Yaakov. Why should he kiss Eve? He came and kissed him by giving him appreciation by saying the Satan was l'shem shemayim. The Satan was so happy. Bechal Zais and all this, Lechat Eev, where Bisvasim in his lips. However, they want to say in his heart he was upset. Rav, no. So Rav wants to say Bisvasim Lechat believe Bechata. Why? Because my karma Eretz Nasna Biyad Russia. The Eretz was given to the hands of Russia. Pnei Shaftei Chase. Him La'efami, who was basically saying that the evil was taken over and there's no such thing as Rebbeinu Shalom controlling the world. Rav, no. Rav wants to say to destroy, to say the world was flipped. No. Abaye says even in his heart he wasn't going against Rebbeinu Shalom. He's saying Satan. Kitanoi, like we see, Eretz Nosam Yad Rasha, Belazit, Machalekes, Belazit, I'm a Bikash Eov, Lahafach Kara Pia. Sure, no, Diba Eov, Laklap Satan, the same type of thing. We see Machalekes, Tanoim, Rabbi Lezer, and Yeshua. Then it says, Al Daitcha, Kiloi Ersha, Ve'im Yadcha Matzel, Amarava Bikash Eov, Liaftaris, Kalaylam, Kulam, and then Eov started complaining that there's no such thing as Bechira. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants, he can do whatever he wants. I'm on the front of Rebbeinu Shalom. Barasashar, you created an ox, Parsaisiv Sedukais, with split hooves. Or Barasa Chamar, Parsaisiv Klutais, with closed hooves. Basically, we know which one's kosher, which not. He's trying to say, Barasa Gan Eden, Barasa Gehenim, Barasa Tzadikim, Barasa Rishon, Mi Ma'akav Yadcha. Who's stopping you? The way a person goes off the derech, it wasn't his fault. What was the friends of Ian answering? Af Ata Tafa Yireh. What do you want? You're going to take away the whole year Shemaim, Sikor Sichel, Fnekel, stop down into the Rebbeinu Shalom. Kadosh Baruch Hu Yetzahara, Bar L'Tayra Tavlin. We all know what is the medicine for the Yetzahara Tayra. Darish Rava Ma'idich Berchas, the people that are complaining, the people that are Nebuch suffering. Olay Tova, they come to me. V'leiv almana arnin. What's it mean? Berchas oived, Olay Tova. Melamed shei goizel, what he would do is, he would take fields from the Yisayim Mashbicha, we would bring it up in value, Machzil and then return it. V'leiv almana arnin. What's it mean? The hearts of the almana? The chalecha davi ika almana. The Olay Avinas. Well, no one wanted to marry the almana. V'azil, Shadi Di'io, Chavrusa, Avashadi, Avazil, Shadi Shemei Lui. What he did was he made a good name about her, or he said he wants to marry her, and everyone suddenly came running after the man and married her. Vava Asu Naspil on the married her. Says in the pasuk, Lu Shakal Yishakal Kaasi Vavasa Besnaim Yisu Yachad. He was trying to say, if you put the Averis on one side and my suffering on the other, it's not fear. Amar of Afra, who is he? You have to talk like that. Amar Afra Lefume Di'iyov, Amar Rav Afra Lepume Di'iyov. You should stuff Eo's mouth with dirt. Chavrusa Klapa Shema. He's talking to the Rebbeinu Shalom like a chavrus, like a business deal. Go check the scales, see how much I suffered. Who are you to talk like that? And then he continued. Eve said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, Lu yesh b'neinim machiach, yashis edeno sheninu. Let's bring a middleman, an arbiter, to figure out if it's fear what you're doing. Amar Rav again. Afar lepuma de'Eov. Klum yesh even shemechiach Rabbi. Who is Eve to talk like that? We should stuff his mouth with dirt. Bris karasa le'eni umayis b'nei l'bsula. What did Eve do? Amar Rav afar lepama de'Eov. Eve was trying to say how he's such a tzaddik that he doesn't look at other ladies. Iu b'achrinisa Avram afilu b'didei lo yistaku. We all know Iu b'achrinisa. He maybe didn't look at other ladies, but his wife he would look at. Avram afilu b'didei lo yistaku. We all know this. Tichsev hini yadati before he went into Mitzrayim. Kisha yafes mara at michlal demikara. He didn't even know that she was beautiful. And then he says, whoever goes into kever, we say this, betachn lashon shol means a kever is not going to come up. We didn't believe that anyone who goes into a kever is going to come out. And then it says, that he's trying to tell them that you caused me a lot of tsar and a lot of this, all the incident that happened with Eve. The whirlwind, he started complaining to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and Rebbeinu Shalom came back with the same strength. Besara charaf, why dechsev Hashem besara yishafeni. That Amar Levana Rebbeinu Shalom Shema Ruach Zara over Lefanecha. Eve was telling the Rebbeinu Shalom, maybe he got a little confused. Why? Nischal v'cha ben Eve Eve. A wind came, and Eve and I are very similar. So Besara Shavur Rebbeinu Shalom said, I'll answer you back with the same koyach. Dechsev Ayan Hashem and Eve min Asar from the world by Yomer. Ez enaki gevach alatzech. You better get up like a line of shochem and ask a question of Eideni. You better know them. What happened? Now we're going to go through a bunch of stuff that the Rebbeinu Shalom said. By the way, many pores. I hear as many pores from the bottom to Zayin and Aleph, towards the bottom. Every pore in the body with the hairs is one hair. It can be that two hairs are going to come out of one pore. Will cause a person to lose its eyesight. So if you look at your pores, they're so close to each other. You think I got confused between the words of Eve and Oyev? Me, then the pasuk continues, me, peleg l'shetef, tal l'loshon, shituf. Loshon channels water, habrit, tipim, barasi, bava, made many clouds. V'chol tipa v'tipa, every drop has its own way to come down. Barasi l'tfus b'nei atzma has its own tfus. Kadei shalosh tipim yotzis m'tfus achas. It would come out together, shemolosh tipim yotzis m'tfus achas, mitashkos, his hearts would ruin the world. Ain't much Paris. Be tipa l'tipa l'schavli, b'niv loy l'schavli. My mash, what's it saying? The high tala. How do we know tala is lashon tfusi? It says vayas tala lashon tala k'beis asayim zera. It causes enough to have plow and plant the base high. Then the pasuk continues. V'derech lachzis koilos, the channel of the koilos of the thunder. Harbe koilos barasi bavim. I created many paths of thunder. V'chol kol v'kol barasi l'shvil b'fnei atzmei has his own shvil. Kedei sheloi yiyush te koilos yotzim shvil achad. If the thunder would come out two koilos from one shvil. Shelmalish te koilos yotzim shvil achad machrivins kol ha'olam min kol ha'kol nischayfli ben Eve la'ilif. I should make a mistake nischayfli. Then the pasuk continues. Hayadate eis ledas yalisela. Do you know when the mountain goat gives birth? Or chayla yolis tishmar. You know what the pain of the gazelle is going through, that what's going on. Yala zuach zaris al banel. This mountain goes very achzari in her children. Beshasha karas aladis, when she squats to give birth, went to Zayin and Beis. Oila l'reishahar, she goes on top of a mountain. Kedei sheyipol mimeni the almost that her children should die as soon as they get birth. I need masmula. What I do, I bring them a nesher, an eagle. Shemekabloi bichnafov umanich lefanel. V'molim maktim regaecho no yimesacher regaecho. If you miss by a second. Miyad meis been regular and schafli been Eve life. I'll make a mistake in schafli. Then it says chayla ayolas tishma. The pains of the gazelle are unbearable. That what ayolas urachmat sar. This womb is very narrow. This animazmula, dark, and a snake comes and bites in the rechem, and it opens up the womb. The baby can come out. If I would go and miss a day, it would die. Ben regular, and ischalfli. Ben Eev loyle. If you think I made a mistake, ischalfli. And then the Gemara says, Eev loy bedas yidaber v'dvar loy behesku. He didn't say anything with smart, no knowledge or wisdom. However, at the same time, it says, so we see from there, from what he said, even though it was wrong, but he was going through such much suffering. The 3 friends heard about this, and they came together, who came, Elifaz at Timani, Bildad, Shuchi, Vitzaifer, and Amasi. They came together, they met together, to give him a bunch of nichum. What does it mean they met together? They both ended up hitting each other on the same shard. They all met up. How far away were they from each other? They're 300 parsecs away. How could they know about it? They didn't have WhatsApp at the time. They had a crown when they all had their image with their name. And what happened was, whenever there was suffering, their image would change a little. The army, have those trees, the kiva and the mechashi would wither. They would realize they're in trouble. So it was 3 trees, or 4 actually, even his 3 friends. And whenever it withered, they knew that one of them was in trouble, so they all went together. Like we all know, try to have friends like Eev, like we always say, we're talking about in Bereshis, when the world was starting to do Larav, Lashon Larav, Pnei Adam, there was a lot of creation going on. And they had bonis. Rabbi Yechon Amar, Revia Ba'laylam. Now there's a lot of procreation. Reish Lakish Amar, no, Meriva Ba'laylam, a lot of fighting. Amar, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yechon, the Dacht Amar, Revia Ba'laylam. Eev had what? Had 7 sons and 3 daughters. When he got his brachas that everything would double, he ended up with 14 sons, but also at the same time only 3 daughters. He did not have 6 daughters. Shemus, very nice. He did not get with Shemus. It says Shiva Banim. Shiva Ana Banim. Lashon Shiva Ana was Lashon 14. V'shalosh Banim is Veikar. Shema Achaz Yemima. One was called Yemima. Vashem Hashem is Ksiya. One was called Ksiya. Vashem Shlish is Karen Hafach. Yemima. Why was the first one called Yemima? She said Daimel Yayim. She was beautiful like the day. Ksiya Sheirecha Noidiv Ksiya, like the perfume of Ksiya. We can say it in Tyrus. And Karen Hafach, Amid the Reb Shila, Shedaim like Karen, the Karish is an animal. Rashi says Min Chaya, and her horns are black. So the Gemara they laughed at us. They said Karen the Karish Lakusi. It's ugly. Like there was a certain perfume that came in, that was the best. And Namaki Sikri Befuch, and Lashon Fuch is the perfume, and here Lashon Karen Hafach, the best, Karen the Spitz of the perfumes. Rab Shimon Rabbi Saudalei Barter. Rab Shimon Rabbi had a daughter. Havakacholish Daite, and we all learned this. We said this last week. The reason why he had Chalisha Sadas, we actually did this when we did Daf Yomi Julie. We explained because he wasn't Zeiche for the Pidyon Aben. That's why he had Chalisha Sadas. He wasn't Zeiche for the mitzvah. Amal Avua, Revia Ba'laylim was giving him Shvach. He said, what do you mean? At least now there's a lot of procreation in the Welt. Amal Ba'kafet and Chumim Shel Hevel Nichachma Havuacha. He didn't help me. The Tani Yav Shel Aylam B'lay Schar B'lay Nekevas. El Ashri Lemi Shabanim Scharim Aylam Shabanim Nekevas. Just like in the world, the Yav Shel B'lay, you need perfumes of El B'lay Bursi. You could either be a tanner. What do you rather be? Ashri Mishum Nasi Busmi. He's always dealing with nice perfumes. Oilemi Shum Nasi Bursi. Someone who's in the tan all day. Kid Tanai Zaktamar. It's a Machlekes Tanaim. State in the Torah of Av Hashem Berachas Av Makol. My Bakol, what does it mean Bakol? Reb Meir Aimer Shalai Salavas. He did not have a daughter. Reb Yehuda Aimer Punk Faket. Shalai Salavas. Achema in Beis Hayai Salai Avram. Ubakol Shimon. That was the name. Relaz Zemadai Aimer. At Stinginus Haisa Believe Shal Avrini, who's one of the best. Shakol Malchay Mizrach and Ma'ariv Mashkim the Faiz. They would all come to him for eitzes. Reb Shimon Imechai Aimer. After he died, Evan Taiva Haisa Tzlui B'Tzavara Shal Avrini. He had a stone in his heart. Shakol Chayla Rai Haisa Miyam Yisrab Mushashin Iftam Avrini. When he died in the island, Tola Kadosh Baruch Hu Begal Gechamo. And like we all know, Amar Abaya, Hainadam Inchi, Idli Yaima, Idli Katsira, that what? The light takes away the sickness. Okay, Zok the Gemara. Davar Achash Shalei Marad Esav Biyamav. That Esav did not do Merida, that's what it means by called. Davar Achash Asi Shmal, Tshuva b'yom shaloi mara deisa Esav b'yom minolin d'chsev. It says vayavoy Esav min asad avuay. If he was very tired, and we're going to all see what averis he did. That day, Av Niftar Avram Avinu, Vasiak Avinu, Tavshel Shal Adashim. That day they made a Madashim Lanachem Yitzchak. Aviv, Maishno Shal Adashim. Why did we give out lentils? Amram Rav Mishmei the Rav Mamari. My Adash Zuei Lapad doesn't have a mouth. So tough. Oval Ein Lapad, you don't talk. Darachem Adash Zuma Gogelas, that it's round. Afavelos Megalas and Chazarah Sabaloilam. We believe in Tchisa Mesim. The world is round. So too the Velt. When someone's sitting shiva, we're basically saying this Tchisa Mesim. My Benayik Benayla Nachamu Bevei to give what we do today. Taka. What we have to do is by Beis we give it an egg that is round. Amr Rabbi Yechanan. Chamesh averos over oisa harasha beoisa yoyman that day. What ball naimer rasa? That's number 1. V'harigas a nefesh. Number 2. V'kaveh beikar. Number 3. V'kaveh t'chisamesim. Number 4. V'satas a b'chayra. Let go the b'chayra. The Gemara brings psukim for all this. Ball naimer rasa ksev hacha, like it says. V'yavoy esim and asadi came from the field. Like it says over there, matzah. We're talking about naira rasa that gets nenas. It says when you find the naira in the field. Hargas and nefesh k'siv hacha ayif tarif k'siv hasam ayna liki ayif and nashil hargim again lashon ayif chav beik k'siv hacha. Lama is that what I need this k'siv hasam zeh keli van veyu. Covered chesam eis chesam hine hayni ayla chamas. I mean either we're gonna die, so I don't care about it. V'satas b'chayir d'chsev v'yivas eisam b'chayir. Let go the b'chayir. Shasi shmal tshuva yaminol. And how do we know this? Because Avino Rav Cham Barbuzi have asking me the Rabba that was sitting coming down and Rav was dozing off. Oh, but Avino Rav Cham Barbuzi v'aday dim rasa. Kamisa sheish b'gvia. Enemy says gvia in it. Zoom is also tzadikim. Amalei, is that really true? V'adar mabul. Amalei, non gvia ve'asifa. Karmin it has to have both. Amalei v'yishmal d'chsev be osakis via ve'asifa. Adahachi meanwhile. Isserbu, Rava woke up. Amalu Darki, Makindalach, Hachi Amr Yechim Yishmal, did Tshuva. Also Tshuva Chayav, Shenamar, Vayikru Isa, Yitzchak, Vayishmal, Yitzchak was buried first, Banov. In fact, tomorrow, maybe it was just because it was Derech Chmas, and that's why Yitzchak was built first, buried there first. The Dilma Derech Chmas and Kachashul Ma'ata. Says in the Pasuk, Vayikru Isai, then it says, Vayikru Isai, Esav Vayakov Banov. Night time Lachashul Derech Chmas. Why do you do over there der chachma? Since it was first at Dubri Adabri, was mevater with the Abisham. I mean, no, the Yishmal, the Tshuva to the Rebbeinu Shalom Tshuva of Biyama. Tana Rabbanon, we're almost done the parak. We're about to start Yud Zayin and Aleph. Tana Rabbanon Shloisha Timan Hakadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam Hazeh Me'ein Olam Haba. How do we know this? Elohein Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Avram Dichsev Bakol. Yitzchak Dichsev Be Mikol. Yaakov Dichsev Be the Lashon Kol. Shloisha, there are 3 people. Shalot Behen Yitzhara Elohein Avim Yitzchak Yaakov Dichsevu Bako Mikol. Call that everything. Some say it was even David never had Dichsev Libi Cholo Bekirbi. My heart's empty. It's totally Cholo. We learned Cholo means empty. Bekirbi. That what? I have no Yitzhara. Idach no. Tzarei du Kamitcher. He's complaining to Baishon that he went through so much suffering that his heart got used to it already. Tana Abanon. Shisha Leishalot Behen Malach Hamavis. Ve'Elohein who are these? Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron and Miriam. Mamish, this week's parsha, we just finished this yesterday. Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Dichsebu Bakol Mikol Kol Moshe Aaron and Miriam Dichsebu Mamish Chukas Al Pi Hashem. Frank the Mara Miriam like Sibu Al Pi Hashem. Rashi brings us down. And Ravi Omer Abelazar Miriam Nabi B'Nashika Mesi Yosef David Nashika Da'asya Sham Shami Moshe. Like it says in the pasuk. Sham Vetikav Sham Neima Loinema Ma Pi Hashem. Gemara Shekanaya David Loima the Rebbeinu Shalom gave a Nashika to Miriam. Tana Abanot. Shiva Leishalat Behen Rima V'Te'ela, and their bodies are still intact till today. Ve'Elohein Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, Moshe Aaron Miriam. Now, if anyone except Avram Yitzchak got it from different psukim, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov for sure had to get it because they got everything. So we only need to bring psukim to not Avram Yitzchak Yaakov to the people on the bottom of the ladder, right? Because if Miriam and Aaron got it, Kol Shkein Avram Venus. Let's see it inside. Miriam. Elohein Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. What? Right, Moshe, Aaron, Miriam, Binyamin, Yaakov, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sibu, like we said, Mikvaku, Mikol, Kol. And if Moshe and Aaron had it, they for sure had it. Moshe, Aaron, Miriam, Sibu, Al Pi Hashem. They died when the Shikas mace, and Rashi explains the way we die with the Malach HaMavis, he drops in a little poison in us, and that's what causes it to rot, and that's what causes us to get worms. Binyamin, Ben Yaakov, Dechsev, Binyamin, Amar, Yidid, Hashem, Yishka, in Levetach, Olav, he's going to be in Levetach, secure. We're not going to have any rimatayla. Yishayim Avdav Dechsev Af Basra, even my Basra when he died. Again, Yishkan Levetach V'idach. No, Ahu Rachmu the Kabay is only down to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Please don't let me have the rima v'tayla. Tana Rabbanan Arbu Mesu. 4 people died. Ba'ata Shanachash Ve'Elohein with the snake bite. Ve'Elohein Ben Yamin Ben Yaakov They Amram Avi Moshe V'Yishai. What?
The sin of the snake.
Yeah, sorry, but the sin of the snake, right? Ve'elim Binyamin Yaakov Amram Avi Moshe V'Yishai Avi David V'Chila ben David V'Chulu Gemara. Everything is tradition. The Bar Yishai Avi David the Mefarish Bekol, like the pasuk says clearly. The Chsiv says in the pasuk, "There's Amasha Sam Avishalom Tachas Yaif." That Avishalom put a Masha on the Yav Alatzava Masa, who was a Masa ben Ish, his father was Ushma Yisrael Israel, Shabbat, who had relations with Abigail, Bas Nachash. And so he says, Bas Nachash. Achais, but there was a sister, Tzuria, Aim Yav, the mother Yav. Frek the Mar, V'chi Bas Nachash have it. It's not true. Beitzashel Shal Nachash, that's what you mean with the sin. Beitzashel Nachash, right? V'chi Bas Nachash, It wasn't a Bas Nachash. Like Bas Yishai, we know it's Bas Yishai because there were sisters, Yidchsiv, Achi Yoseyim, Tzuria of Abigail, there were sisters. Elamai, what's it mean? Bas Nachash. Bas mi shemeis beito shenachush with the eitzah, the nachush, hadron chashutvin. We're going to start with Layachvar. Now we got, till now it's very easy. We had that got this eve, was very pleasant. However, we're going to get into very difficult Gemaras which require much focus. We're going to try to move along quite quickly because again, this is only a Chazarah share. When we did the Daf, it's not done. When we did the Daf, we did it at a much slower pace, but this requires much more concentration. We're going to see Lishna Kamas, Lishna Basas, Gemara Zabai, Varova, Smicha, and on and on. We're going to try to explain it in a very clear fashion, but it's going to have to move along. Okay, Hadron L'Chashutfin, Layachver, Adam, Bar, Somach Lebar Shachaver. A person is not allowed to dig a pit next to his friend's pit, V'Leisiach, not a ditch, V'Lema'ara. And Rashi explains one has a cover, a vault, one doesn't have a cover, one's just lengthy. Not a channel of water, which is a pool. That's how they did the laundry over there, and they put in chemicals, which was toxic. We're going to see in the Gemara exactly what that means. Unless you moved 3 tvachim away from your friend's wall. However, V'sad b'sid, you need to apply the walls also with lime. Umarchikin, you have to stay away from what? This a gefes. It's psoilus of zaysim. Vesa zevel from manure, vesa melech from salt, which is all toxic and cause heat. Vesa sid, vesa lime, vesa slime. There's a type of flintstones that damage. Mikaisu shechaver gimel tfachim. Oy sad b'sid. We're going to see this in the Gemara. If it's oy or it's v'sad b'sid. Another point is marchikin. It says roim. The seeds vesa machresha, the plow vesa meraglaim, and urim and akaisu shloishet tfachim. Another point that the Gemara, the Mishnah for Zayis marchikin is a richayim. That the lower mill, we had a mill that has a bottom disc, which was 3 tvachim away, but the top one, which is more narrow, which is arba shloishim and hashechiv to loshin shchiva because it's on the bottom. Shein arbam and arechiv loshin shchiva, which is on top. V'satan in the oven shloishim and achalya shein arbam and a sofa, again type of oven. The way it was made, the bottom was much more wider. Zok the Gemara, frek the Gemara, bam kasha. Pasach bebar u'misayim b'kaisel v'lisni lemkin hechem yibar shechaver gimel tvachim. If you look in the Mishnah, it says lo yachver adam bar samach lebar shechaver, and then it flips onto the kaisel. Who is talking about a kaisel? We're talking about a pit. For the Gemara, Ama Abai v'Tamer of Yehuda mikaisel bar sheninu. We're going to explain this over here. We're going to go through this again later. What it means, mikaisel shechaver, doesn't mean a regular beautiful brick wall. Means as follows: your friend's chatzah has a bar. Now a bar has to have somewhat of to hold up the bar. It needs to have a wall. That part underground, that thickness of the underground wall, that's what it means a kaisel. How thick is that? That's gimel tvachim to keep that bar. Zok the Gemara. Ve'listi, so say straight out, Elahim kain herchik mi bar shechaver gimel tvachim. And I understand you got to move gimel tvachim away from the bar. Hakamash from the Gemara. The kamash is hagu for the kaisel bar is how much? Shleish tvachim. What's the nafkamina? How thick the bar is? The Tanya, a person tells his friend, a bar, I'm selling you a bar without saying how much. How much? He has to give him land the shleisha tvachim, because a bar, the bare minimum of a bar, is 3 tvachim wide. Itmar. Now we're going to get into Lishna Kam, Lishna Basa, B'chleik Zabai, V'rova, Bo, Lismaich, Betzad, Amitzar. You want to put something damaging next to your boundary of your friend. Abaya Amar, you can do it. Saimich, Rava Amar, Aina Saimich. You're allowed. So it's a machlokes Abaya Rava. If you could put something damaging next to your friend, we're going to see. Are we talking about that there's something ready there that's getting damaged, or even before that? Zok the Gemara. Besad this is Lishna Kam. Let's try to remember this. Besad the Asuri lebayres divrei hakol Aina Saimich. According to Lishna Kam, if it's a field that's not meant to have pits, Kulam holds you now Saimich. What are we talking about? Sadash Aina Asuri lebayres, where there's no chance or not a high chance that you'll make a pit. You don't have to. You're going to be able to put a pit because you can rely that your neighbor is not going to put a pit because it's not really proper. It doesn't make sense financially to put a pit. For Rav Amma ain't a seimich. Why? It's a very good chap. The Amalei ki hechi, just like you that you decided to do something a little different and put a pit. And no, not me. I'm going to also dig a pit. That is the Lishna Kama. So let's say that outside in order to go very well. The Lishna Kama holds if it's a sadeh. Ha suya lebayris ain't a seimich. The only machlekes Abai v'Rav is a sadeh she'ein asul lebayris, and it comes at the Rav and Lefila Lishna Kama. When the Lishna Kama never holds you're able to be seimich. Ikadamis Lishna Basra. The sadeh she'ein asuya lebayris. The other way around. Abai and Rav both agree that what you could be seimich. Why? Because it's not a problem. It's asul lebayris. And they both could cause damage to each other. So right today we could both be seimich. Keep it pleasing where we are going to buy v'Rava. Besada asur lebayros. That what? Sorry. Ikadami besada shein asur lebayros dira kol seimich, because there's a very low chance that you're going to put on a pit. Therefore you can be seimich. However, where the machlekes says besada asur lebayros. Abaya amar seimich afil arbana. We're going to see the Mishnah of Chafhei. The army machikin esayilo min abar esim chamash amma. When your person has a pit, the sharash and the roots of the tree could go all the way eventually, not today, not in 5 years, but eventually it's going to hit his pit and destroy it. Hasam would have been the kanata. Now that you planted a tree, isa labar, there's a bar, so eventually it's going to cause damage. Now that you're digging less of the bar, therefore Abai wants to say it's mutter. That's made by the tree. Mind your own business. I'm digging. You can plant. That's how do you mean the husband in the kanata. Today, when I'm doing it less than Shirasha, the mask of the bar, it's only going to happen in many years. Every time you take your show and your spade and digging in the ground, you're weakening my ground, so you're causing a hezek immediately. Tanan. Now we're going to start asking kashas on this. It says in the Mishnah, if there's no bar, you can be saimich. So let's try to break this down. Which is the Lishna, Basra. Then I'll tell you our Mishnah is talking about and everyone holds Saimich, it's not a kasha. Lishna comment that says the Amra Besada Sheina Sur Bayris Pligis, Machlekes Abai and Virava. What's going on? Because he holds Saimich. If you look at the Lishna Kama again, according to Lishna Kama, Rava never holds you able to be Saimich. Kasha. Rava, Itma Allah, Marabai, Vitim Rav Yehuda. No, Mikaisel Bar Shaninu, it's not a kasha. Rava, I'll tell you what's going on is Mikaisel Bar, that the Chiddush is that when a person puts a pit in his yard, we're talking about he himself, the first person, needs to go Gimel Tvachim away from the Chatzar, even though there's no new bar in the second Chatzar. That's the Chiddush. The Chatzar, I have a Chatzar Aleph and you have a Chatzar Beis. I'm the first guy building my bar. You don't have a bar. The Chiddush of the Mishnah is I need to go back 3 Tvachim. That's how thick is my Kaisel bar? It's from the boundary. So you have a boundary, the fence. I need to go back 3 Tvachim, and my 3 Tvachim are the Kaisel bar. How much do you need to go? You also need to go Gimel Tvachim. So it comes out being Vav Tvachim from the bar. So the Chiddush is that a bar is Gimel Tvachim. Even the first person is Ein Saimich. So it's not a kasha to the Mishnah. Zok the Gemara. I can understand our Mishnah is talking about Sada Sula Bayris. However, according to Basra, what is Abai going to do? He holds Saimich. There they're coming at the exact same time, and in such a scenario, then Avad, it's a problem. Okay, Toshma. We're going to bring a bunch of 8 or 9 kashas on Rava as follows. Toshma, Sela Babi Yadayim. The halach is Sela Babi Yadayim, which is very easy to zah. You pick it up with your hands. You don't need a shovel. Zeh chayfer bar mekan. Zeh chayfer bar mekan. Zeh machik shleisha tvachim b'sabasit. Zeh machik shleisha tvachim b'sabasit. Each one needs to go gimel tvachim and do line. Zok the Gemara, Babi Yadayim, shani lei. There it's different. The reason why you all need to be marchik and you don't need to be saimich is because it's very, very loose land. Therefore, you need to do much more. The Gemara, the karma and the karla. What was you having me in avada? It's pasha that you need to be. Move along, Babi Yadayim. It's the Chiddush is that what? Even though it's Babi Yadayim, Sadach Amina Kivan Babi Yadayim, since it dissolves very easily, Levai Nami Revachat Tvei, I would even need more. Kamash Malon, that Gimel Tvachim is good enough. Okay, we're going to go through 8 rayas against Rav, and they all have very similar terutzim. So to bring out the teretz the first time before we go through the Gemara is as follows. The Gemara is going to tell us that certain stuff, the Chiddush of the Mishnah is that these stuff damage a wall. The question becomes is that Rava holds Ein Saimich. If Rava holds Ein Saimich, why in the world do you need to tell me that it damages a wall? Even if there's no wall over there, you still cannot put these damaging items. The teretz is that if there's a very low chance that there's going to be a wall over there, you're able to put these damaging items. So let's see this inside. We're going to go through 8 rice. Toshma marchikin es a gefes. You're able to move that gefes. Ves a zevel, ves a melch, our mishnah, ves a sid, ves a sloim, kaisel shechaveira, gimel tvacham, oisa besid. Sokting Mar makes a very good diak. Time of the equal kaisel, aleka kaisel, saimich. So it's a kasha rava. For the Gemara, like you like a kaisel, nami like saimich. Even when there's no wall, you can't either be saimich on top of your chesed with aleph. So what's the kamash milan? The kamash milan, the hani, these stuff are damaging to a wall. Kasha la kaisel. To bring out the question again, who cares? According to Ravi, you never saimich whether there's a wall or not. The chiddush is if there's a very low chance there's going to be a wall, then you could be saimich. Another kasha. Very similar kashas, and it's all the same terutzim. Tosh ma machikin, it says Royim, the seeds that's a machresha, the plavis, mer glaim, and a kaisel, how much I should talk him. Again, time of the kaisel is only because the kaisel, like a kaisel samich. For the Gemara, same teretz, like let's a kaisel, nami like samich, and the my kamash malon, what's the kamash malon? The masuna, because these all have moisture, they're kosher like kaisel. Raya number 3, kasha number 3 against Rava. Tosh ma veserichayim, by the milk, give him a shechav, shein da'am and a rechem. Again, time of the kaisel is only because there's a wall. Ha, like a kaisel, it could be samich kasha Rava. For the Gemara, loy. So what's the kamash malon? Kamash malon, these all cause vibrations in the middle. Tighter, kasha la kaisel. Kasha number 4, toshma. There's a tanur, the oven, shloishim, and a chal yishin dalman, and so it's the end of the Mishnah. Again, we make a diak. Time of the kaisel, halaka kaisel, samich. So tomorrow, same teretz, like kaisel, nami like samich, like kamash malon, that what? Havla, heat, kasha la kaisel. Toshma, Ryan number 5 against Rava. Lo yiftach Adam chanusha nachtoimim a bakery v'shel tzavayin tachas etzor shechaveira. If your upstairs has cattle, you should not put stuff in the bottom because it's going to get ruined. V'lo yirefes biker. Time medika oitzer haleka oitzer. Ovid, you could do it. Family Mar, deer or shiny there. It's different that a person lives in those days. They all had small mom and pop shops. It was very normal that you had a bakery. So you have a bakery in your house. Suddenly someone comes downstairs and puts damaging stuff and ruins your bakery. Dikanami, the Tanya Lot Taka says, Imaisa refes baka kaidames lights. It's mutter when in the middle of Yud Chesam and Aleph. Tashma. Kasha number 6 against Rava. Lo yita adam ilan samach l'sadi. Now let to put a tree next to your friend's field. Imkin hirchak mimeno dalad amas. And we learned this, the Tanya Allah, Da'ad Amash Amr, Kadei Avodas HaKerem. We saw this in Beis and Aleph, Mechitz HaKerem, Shenifritza, that as long as together there's no primer Kalayim. So what's the Da'ad Amash over here? Time of the Avodas HaKerem, time of Shum Kadei Avodas HaKerem. It's only because the horse, the oxen should have room. We saw this also the last week when we were trying to do a Chalukah, that he needs to have space. Halam Shum Kadei Avodas HaKerem, Samach. So you see, you could put the damaging stuff as long as there's a wall so there's no Kalayim. So Akdamar Avagad the Ika Sharash and the Kamaski, even though the roots are going to destroy Chamaskin and the Mafsik Tumna, there's rocks in the bottom of the ground, so trees, the roots of the trees do not go in. Deaconami Diktani says, Hi, got them in time. If there's a fence, there's something like the Mekan, there's something like the Mekan. For tomorrow, he hachi, Ema Sefer says in the Sefer clearly, Hi Sharash of Yaitz Mitach Chaveri, Mamek Lahan, Shlishat Tvachim, Gimel Tvachim to take out the roots. Kadei Shalayakiv and Machresha, so should not uproot the plow. Be the Masik Sumni, you tell me there's rocks. My boy, what's the issue? And the Gemara Hachikam, we allowed somna that if there is no rocks, V'hoyu Yotzin L'Teich Shechaveira, and then the Allah is Mamek Shlishat Tvachim. Why could they Shaliyakim Machresha, but Avada? We're talking about our case, there's rocks. Another kasha. Kasha number 7. Toshma, Machikin, Asailim, and a bar. How much? We said 25 amos. Time of the kabar is only because it's a bar. Like a bar samach, the guy again it's a kasha and Rava. You, Rava, telling me you're now allowed to put something that's dangerous next to the mates of your friend, even if it's not there. You clearly see not. Like you like a bar, nami like samech, vakamash malon, the what? The atchafi hama, ozi sharashu maski the bar. Yachi frekta ma'ima seifa says, Vim Elon, Kadam. If the trees before you're not allowed to cut, if you either like some the heck of the big family, the market, they're papa, like we can see in Beis, we're talking about Lekech. The Lekech had a tree, and then he saw the property surrounding the tree. Achinam Lekech. Toshma. Kasha number 8 against Rava Marchikin. It's a mystery. You have to move the flax, pool, minayark from the vegetables, Vizakrishan, the leek, minabsalam, and the onions. Vizachardom and advairim, and the mustard from the bees. Time of the Ika yark is only because there's vegetables, or like a yark, samach. Again. We're going through this quickly because it's mamish the back and forth exact same shakavatara. Like Yarek, Nami Loy Samach, Kamash, what the Hani Kosha does is damage to each other. Yachi Frektamar, Amos Sefa. Abyaisi is Matter Bechar, the wipe Nishiach, Loimer like to tell him, Acha at the Oimer Lee, who are you to tell me? Harchek, Hardachom in the Vroid, move my mustard from your bees. Harchek, you should move your bees from my honey, from my mustard because it's getting ruined. So to give a little context, what's happening is the bees are going to the mustard, the mouths are getting very burny, and they go back and they eat their own beehive. So he's complaining that you're ruining my honey. So he answers back, who are you to complain? You're coming and taking my flowers and my mustard. You're eating my mustard. Again, now this is the kasha. How could there be that back and forth taino? So Amar Rav Papa, the scenario was again like Keyach. We're talking about the lekech that he sold it afterwards. Then you have a kasha with Rabbanan. What's Takab Shat Rabbanan says it's a problem. Another kasha is what's my time there? Yosef Afilu Mishav. He should have his time in all the cases. Amar Ravina Kasavi Rabbanan. So Ravina tries to say the Machlekes says it's a mazik or a nizik. Kasavi Rabbanan and what a mazik lahachik atzmai. Mechlas or tomorrow you tell me that Yosef Saval and nizik lahachik atzmai. I have a problem with that. If you're telling me that Yosef owes I don't care and nizik Afilu Mishav Kanami should have to move to the nizik. Rabbi Yosef Nami la mazik svir. This is the shita Rabbi Yosef that he says it's always on the mazik to move. I could understand it's a one-way street of damages. The bees and the mustard, it's a two-way street. And Rabbanan answered that's not true. Even again, if it's just for if it's for the seeds itself, the bees don't find it, they only find the leaves. It's not a big deal. Your leaves go right back to Hada part. Is that really true? It's not true, but tonight we have a Mishnah. Later we're going to learn this. Even though the pit's in front of the tree, before the tree came out, why? Again, and he's talking to the Rabbanan l'shitasam. I myself hold on nizik lachas atzma. I don't have any issues. I feel a mishra miyakanami. Loi bayiruchuke. I don't have a problem moving. According to your Rabbanan Damrisa, that you're telling me alamazik. So Tainach I could understand Mishra Birka, the Hani Maskani, Manila Maskani. Elachardo. Vidvarim Tavai Maskadadi, they both damage each other. Rabbanan going to answer the same teretz earlier. The Varim Lachardo, like Maskala, it is a one-way street because Eva Vinta, if it's for the seeds, like Mashkachasle, he betarfa hada peirin, if it's for the flowers, it grows right back. And Yetzer Hashem, next week we are going to pick up from your test. I'm an Aleph. Thank you, Rabbi Say. Okay.